Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today, those in person and online. My name is Councillor Amber Morley, and I'm the chair of the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee. The clerk has confirmed we have quorum, so we will call the meeting number 8 to order, and our last meeting of 2025, if you can believe it. The year is almost over, so welcome again, everyone. This meeting is being held in person and using the city's WebEx technology with members and staff connecting by video conference and calling in. Because we are meeting in person and remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com, Toronto City Council Live, and hello and welcome to anybody tuning in. I would like to remind all staff and invited participants who are joining the meeting remotely to please keep your mics muted and your video turned off unless you need to address the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to see the members as we debate and vote on agenda items. For members, of course, as always, we do ask that you please keep your mics muted unless you wish to question staff or speak to an item, but do keep your cameras on so we can keep you counted for quorum. If members wish to ask a question of staff or to speak, please make sure your video is in fact on and raise your hand or just call for my attention. You can unmute your mic and indicate your intention to speak. I will create a speakers list on each item. When voting on an item or a motion, I would ask members to turn on your video and raise your hand to indicate your vote. If there is a recorded vote, you will be asked to state whether you're in favor or opposed. Our clerks will support us through that. Members, I also want to remind you that although we are participating remotely and in person, we must still submit our motions in writing. The clerk staff are available at cabrac@toronto.ca to help with any motions. I will now turn it over to our Vice Chair, Lucina, to share the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Morley. So although we are in different locations, the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee acknowledges the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We honor the treaties and responsibilities that endure here, and we name that these lands were taken and held through processes of colonization that continue to shape daily life. Last week, we learned that 62 cultural and spiritual tools from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples will be returned to Canada in December. These sacred heirlooms are expected to include an Inuit kayak, masks, moccasins, and etchings. We are thankful that an Indigenous-led process will ensure their rightful return. I also wish to honor the innumerable ways African ancestral languages, spiritualities, knowledge systems, and kinship ties survive in the lives of Black people here in Toronto and around the world. I further situate our work in a global context. Decolonizing movements and struggles for racial, economic, and cultural justice are active across continents, from community land reparations and cultural resurgence to transnational solidarity with migrants, refugees, and peoples resisting extractive and imperial violences. These movements remind us that confronting anti-Black racism must be a practice that listens to global and local histories of resistance and that centers reparative, community-led change. I offer this acknowledgement to root our work in transformational policy and wide relations so that dignity, safety, and belonging in our city is not conditional. I will turn it back over to Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you so much, Lucina. The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to our ancestors of African origin and descent. On November 7th, Mayor Chow and Councillor Thompson joined city staff, agency partners, and representatives from the Jamaican Canadian Association to announce a new Donate TO portal to support those impacted by Hurricane Melissa. In partnership with the Jamaican Canadian Association, Torontonians can make a financial donation, or they can donate basic necessities, items for shelter, and medical supplies at selected Toronto fire stations. We know that Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic were impacted by Hurricane Melissa as well. Because of the large representation of Black communities from these 4 islands, there have been widespread efforts to support and also a lot of worry and grief within the community. We appreciate all those who have been and continue to provide aid to those impacted by Hurricane Melissa and support loved ones here in the city. We will now move on to the confirmation of our minutes from the September 3rd, 2025 meeting. Any comments, questions, or concerns related to the minutes? If not, I'm looking for a mover to move the minutes from the September meeting. Looking online, no questions yet. Walid, move to accept the minutes. Everyone in favor? Show of hands. Thank you so much. That carries. So there are 3 new items of business to add to the agenda. The first is the new appointment to the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee. I will move to add it to the agenda. All those in favor of the new members, thank you so much. We'll add that to the agenda. The second new item is the meeting processes and simplified rules of procedure. It's a second new item to add. All in favor of moving that item onto the agenda? Thank you so much. That carries. The third is CR 8.4, and this is the 2026 budget allocation for social development plan implementation. I'm going to move to add that to the agenda. All in favor? Thank you so much. That carries. So we now have five items on our agenda today. We are going to start, actually we're reordering a little bit, so we can start with welcoming our new appointed members to our Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee, and then we'll consider the remainder of the items in order. So that will be the order for today. And before we jump into our first item, I want to just share some quick opening remarks as we come to the close of our 2025 year and enter into the holiday season. I reflect on the fact that many diverse communities in our city, particularly Black communities, continue to struggle, face growing challenges and barriers to make ends meet and to thrive. This reality reminds me of the continued importance of the work we are doing here together, and the continued need for our city and city council to benefit from the feedback and foresight of this dedicated committee. In spite of these challenging times and obstacles, many Black communities still find a way to celebrate, to seek rest, and to cultivate renewal as we transition into a new year. Drawing on the traditions of Kwanzaa, I want us to carry its 7 principles, the Nguzo and the Saba, with us as we move into our final series of meetings for this CABRAC term. Kwanzaa is a 7-day celebration that honors our collective African heritage between December 26th to January 1st of each year and seeks to inspire and uplift us in positive traditions. The name Kwanzaa is a Swahili phrase, Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits of the harvest. As a committee, I feel we can carry that meaning as we are moving into our own harvest season and working towards realizing some of the outcomes of the work and work plan we have stewarded together. Though Kwanzaa is rooted in African culture, people from all racial and ethnic backgrounds are welcome to join in the celebration and reflect on the achievements of the past. Plan for the dreams of tomorrow and celebrate what makes this work so vital for the success and advancement of our city. With that in mind, I also want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your service on this committee. Your leadership, your passion, and your commitment to ensure Toronto continues to be a place that welcomes and supports Black communities and all Torontonians is truly invaluable. I'm proud to act as chair of this council advisory body, and I'm looking forward to continuing to advance this work and reap the harvest of our work in our last meetings of the term. I will also take this opportunity as our last gathering of the year to wish all of you, staff and Black communities online and those who attended in person today, a happy holiday, warmth and togetherness this Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, and well wishes for this season and the many ways folks celebrate this time of year. We're gonna dive on in, guys. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity. So as I mentioned, we're going to start off with a CR 8.3, which is the new appointment to the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee. I have with me here a letter, and you all will have seen on your agendas, from the city clerk for information to inform us about the new appointments to the committee effective November 14th. I would also like to add add a note of thanks, to the city clerk staff and secretariat staff from the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit for launching and successfully delivering a recruitment process for our 3 new members who we're thrilled to welcome today. 61 eligible applicants applied, among which 8 were interviewed and 3 candidates were ultimately selected. Candidates bring skills in human rights, Robert's Rules, the law, 2S LGBTQ+, advocacy and workplace and employment equity, in addition to experience in advancing the UN International Decade for People of African Descent, convenings and principles. I'm also pleased to share that our new members have all received onboarding and orientation. Thank you to staff for that quick work, and we look forward to their contributions for our remaining meetings of the term. Now, I would like to take a moment to welcome our new members, Nicholas Marcus Thompson, Makiba Diana Walters, and joining us virtually is Kendall Ford. Members, any questions on this item before we move to accept, and then we'll open up the floor to provide some time for remarks and introduction for our new members. Any questions on the item? Can I get a motion to receive? Thank you. Waleed, a seconder? No need a seconder. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. And any opposed? Sorry. None opposed? Looking online? Wonderful. That was unanimous. Thank you all. So we will like to take a couple of minutes and offer a moment of introduction to each of our new members. We will go with Nicholas here in the room. We'll give everybody 3 minutes for an introduction, and we'll followed by Makiba and then Kendall online. Go ahead, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank the city staff for recommending my nomination to this committee, as well as the City Council for approving that nomination. It is a tremendous pleasure to be here among you all today to serve. I am the President and Chief Executive Officer for the Black Class Action Secretariat. We are a non-for-profit organization that works in confronting and dismantling systemic barriers that Black workers face in employment. In 2020, my organization launched the largest landmark litigation class action against the federal government to dismantle over 50 years of systemic barriers that has prevented Black people from advancing in their careers. And I'm proud to share that that has led to legislative and policy changes. It has led to recognition, justice, and development fully under the UN Decade for People of African Descent, and it is under that spirit of dismantling these barriers in our public services. It's a reason why I'm here today to lend that expertise, but to also to learn from committee members and to work with committee members to advancing that work at the local level, because we know anti-Black racism and discrimination, it does not discriminate. It exists at all levels of our structures. So I'm pleased to be here with you today to advance this work. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, and you are so welcome. We're grateful to have you joining our committee and for the expertise and insights that you will no doubt offer to this table and to our wider city. Thank you. I'd like to go to Makiba next for an introduction. Go ahead, you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Makiba. My pronouns are they, them, and I am an anti-racism consultant living in Toronto. I was born and raised in Scarborough, very passionate about that. And I work with nonprofit organizations to support them in being able to advance their anti-racism initiatives within the workplace. I'm very passionate about the nonprofit sector and the fact that a lot of our staff that work in nonprofits are some of the people who work with our most vulnerable communities. And so my work lies in how do I support the people who support the people that are in need. So that is what I do. I'm currently stationed at Wood Green Community Services, which is a large nonprofit organization that provides housing to approximately 40,000 residents in Toronto right now. And I'm also a writer. So my writing and poetry stems from my experiences growing up in this city, in Scarborough, in the Black experience, and really understanding how can we move this forward both from a structural perspective in the workplace, but also from an arts perspective and what our stories mean. So thank you so much, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Makiba. We're so grateful to welcome you. And sounds like incredible, powerful experiences and insights that you will also be bringing to the table. So we're really glad to have you. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, we're going to go online to Kendall. Kendall, please go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Good morning. Yep, we got you. Go ahead.
All right, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joining as a new member, and I'm looking forward to contributing to the vital work of Kabrak. I am Kendall. I use they and he pronouns, and I consider myself a passionate advocate for equity and justice work, and I'm committed to supporting the committee's mandate of dismantling systemic anti-Black racism across Toronto. My background in 2S LGBTQI social justice and human rights, where I work at Egal Canada on a vast portfolio of research, education, community development, public policy, human rights law, really with that dedicated focus on addressing systemic inequities. And so for the past 15 plus years, I've been doing that work mostly with Egal Canada and recently with Black LGBTQ justice. And so I'm happy to be joining the committee and uplifting the Black communities here in Toronto. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kendall. Did you say 15 or 50? Because my jaw wanted to go on the floor when you said 50. I was like, wait, what?
15.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. We're grateful to have you around the table and really appreciate getting an opportunity to hear a little bit more about the experience that you're bringing. So again, welcome. We're really glad, and we will move on to our next item. So CR 8.1 is Access to Social Infrastructure Bylaw Implementation Update. Our committee had previously requested a presentation and reminding the committee that staff have brought this item at our request and will be presenting an update today on the Social Infrastructure Bylaw implementation, focused on the overview of the implementation plan, including staff resources, the equity implications and strategies to prevent harm to Indigenous, Black, and other equity-deserving communities affected, and thirdly, to monitor the monitoring and reporting plans on the use and impact of the bylaw. So I'd like to welcome back to our committee James Lapierre, the Deputy Chief of Staff for City Manager's Office. James is here to give a presentation to the committee, and we'll give you 5 minutes or so. Is that good, 10? What do you think for the presentation? I won't put you on the clock. How about that?
You can put me on the clock.
Okay, we'll let you run with it. Thanks so much, James. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So we're just going to project the presentation here, and as I do that, I'll once again thank the committee for having me back and wish a good morning to both the previous committee members that were here for the presentation, as well as welcoming the new members as we just did. So nice to meet you all and speak about this topic with you. As was mentioned, my name is James Lapierre. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategy and Integration in the City Manager's Office. And I have here with me my colleague, Vanessa Ferron, Senior Corporate Management Policy Consultant, also with the City Manager's Office. And I see we have the presentation up now. So we're just going to overview the purpose of the presentation that the Chair and Deputy Mayor have already provided. But really what we want to do is come back to the committee today to provide you with an update on the implementation of the bylaw that was put in force to enable access to social infrastructure. And specifically as requested by this committee, we are going to provide an overview of the bylaw's implementation, including the staff resources, the equity considerations and communication and engagement that were endeavored upon as part of the implementation to support Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving communities, and finally, the approach to monitoring and reporting on the bylaw's implementation. So within that update, as we know, on July 2nd, 2025, the access area bylaw, as we call it, came into effect, and the city began accepting requests for access area for access areas, pardon me. The city's Transportation Services Division is the operational lead in the City of Toronto for the delivery of the bylaw, which includes reviewing and processing requests for the access areas and responding to service requests, including bylaw enforcement as necessary. Transportation Services has a staff complement of 62 transportation standards officers who administer bylaws related to the public right-of-way writ large across the city. As part of the access area bylaw implementation, there are 4 transit standards officers that are allocated for that work. The focus of the implementation of the bylaw has been the communication plan, which was intended to ensure that the public is aware of and understands the scope of the bylaw. On July 2nd, the city launched a website for safe access to social infrastructure, where information about the bylaw is posted, including all established access areas, their addresses, the request process and criteria, some key definitions, public notice and signage requirements for access areas, and information about enforcement. Since the bylaw came into effect, staff have also informed the community groups and organizations that participated in our consultation process about the bylaw and the website where information can be found. Staff continue to assess opportunities to provide further communication to support public and community awareness and their understanding of the bylaw as necessary. In recognition of the feedback received during the community engagement throughout the bylaw development process related to potential equity impacts, staff engaged the council advisory bodies that represent Indigenous, Black, and LGBTQ2+ communities. The purpose of these presentations to these committees was to provide an overview of the bylaw, information about its implementation and the communication approach, and to seek feedback on additional ways to engage and communicate with the communities that these advisory bodies represent. And the city will continue to respond to inquiries and opportunities to address experiences and any issues related to the bylaw's implementation. Since the implementation of the bylaw, staff have been tracking the access areas, the requests, and monitoring service requests and bylaw infractions. As of October 30th, 2025, there have been 47 access areas established and 5 service requests. These service requests have been related to clarifications about access area locations, and all have been responded to. There have also been some general inquiries which have been in a similar nature with respect to information generally about where to get information about things like requesting access area and definitions that are available on the city's website. Through engagement with the advisory committees that I've mentioned, we've also presented to community organizations engaged during the development of the bylaw and have not heard of any impacts or experiences or issues from communities that require additional clarifications or follow-up at this time. However, we continue to hear from organizations as well as these advisory bodies such as the one today about any potential feedback about what you're hearing in the community, so we can continue to ensure that we're communicating clearly and looking for opportunities to best support equity-deserving communities across Toronto. We are also looking for opportunities to enhance the information that's provided on the public available website as well. So with that, I'll conclude the brief update on the implementation and open for questions. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I'm gonna take a questions list. I see Waleed's got a hand up. Anybody else in the room for questions of staff? Lucina, online, anybody like to get onto the list for questions of staff on this item? Not seeing any. If you do, Queen, okay, I got you. Anyone else? Okay, if a question comes up for you as we move through the first few, please just get my attention and I will come to you. Waleed, you are first up. You've got 5 minutes, go ahead.
Welcome back, my friends. Thank you for your update. I had several questions, and take whatever question you can respond to. The first is, I know there's some legal action that has been taken against this bylaws. I'm not specifically to Toronto's bylaw, but I believe the one in Vaughan, the city of Vaughan, so by the CCLA, as reported by CBC Toronto. I'm wondering if the outcome of that constitutional challenge will have an impact on this bylaw and its implementation? So that's the first question. The second question is, what is the cost of implementing this bylaw? I would like to appreciate the staff costs. Will there be new hires to enforce this bylaw? So what have we budgeted per year, or what are we budgeting for the next fiscal year in 2026 for its implementation? I want to have a better sense of where our money's been spent as a city. And then the third piece is with regards to enforcement of this bylaw. I have been to several protests in the city since this bylaw was adopted. Is there selective implementation of this bylaw? And if so, why is that the case? Is it that folks are not aware of this bylaw? They're not aware of the limitations of this bylaw? So I just want to have a better sense on that piece as well. Thank you.
So, Chair, I'll start with the first question on the challenges that are the legal challenges brought forward to Vaughan. So, of course, our legal staff would be monitoring, as they would on any legal challenges in other municipalities that would set precedents for potential litigation that would come to the city, as that is in progress, and there's no definitive response there. I wouldn't have any analysis from the legal department to share with you today. With respect to the costs, in our report, we had indicated that there would be approximately $1.8 million to initiate the implementation of the bylaw, and that was for the FTEs that were identified in the update of the presentation today. With respect to your last question, if I'm clear, you had mentioned that there was, some implementation selective communication.
Enforcement. So enforcement of the bylaw is my question. There have been actions, there have been protests happening in the city. And my query is that, has there been selective enforcement of this bylaw based on the protests at hand or not? And just for clarity, the 1.8 million is per year, right? It's not going to go up in 2026, or is that going to be adjusted by inflation or other costs?
So it would be the 1.8 million, and then any typical, inflationary costs that would impact any budget line item in the city as well. With respect to the implementation of the bylaw and infractions, as I mentioned, there have been no infractions in access areas. So any demonstrations that you may have seen in the media or have been involved in the environment would not have been within the access areas that have been established, nor would there have been any enforcement action that have been called upon through the service request process.
Sorry, just for clarity, so the enforcement is on the access areas specifically. So if it's not within the access areas, there's an enforcement. Is that correct?
The bylaw only applies to established access areas. So any enforcement that you may see in the broader context of demonstrations may happen outside of this bylaw. So enforcement may continue to happen of other types of activities, behaviors, and circumstances, but they wouldn't have been related to this bylaw because we have not received any of those types of complaints or infractions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, I have Lucina. Go ahead, 5 minutes.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, James, for the update and presentation. I do have a set of questions, so please bear with me as I try to kind of organize myself through some immediate thoughts. But the presentation does state that currently 4 TSO or transportation service officers, I believe, or standards officers, I could be misnaming those folks, but with 4 dedicated staff, do we currently feel that that capacity is enough to deal with access area intake, review, community outreach? So what is the scope of those 4 TSOs, their responsibility, so to speak?
So, Chair, the scope of the work of the transit standard officers includes some of the things you mentioned, which would be the review of the requests, and then other elements such as providing signage to established access areas, which is part of the posting requirements, the public posting requirements. as well as responding to service requests, which, as I mentioned, there have been few, as well as any potential interface with community on any inquiries and questions, and responding to help support the enforcement as required. So at this time, the division continues to monitor the frequency and flow of those types of activities to respond, and we've not. It's not been demonstrated that additional resources are required in that regard.
Okay, so capacity has been, it's been sufficient for managing the intake, correct? Okay. I'm curious to know more about the communications plan that's also been referenced in the presentation. I know there were some engagements over the summer with a few different groups. Could you speak in a little bit more detail around the outputs of those engagements and how you have, I suppose, tangibly integrated them in your implementation plans for the access area bylaw?
So, Chair, through the communication and engagement, as I mentioned, it was through two main methods, including coming to committees like this to hear feedback on how to engage with communities in more specific ways, as well as closing the loop with the organizations and communities that were engaged as part of the consultation process to develop the bylaw. In those two specific instances, we've heard some minimal feedback on recommendations of defining or providing more clarity on definitions related to the bylaw, which is what you'll see on the public website as well, and then as well as ensuring that the scope of the bylaw is clear. So where does the bylaw apply and where does it not apply? And one specific example that we heard was around schools and the initial interpretation that perhaps that included in its scope post-secondary education institutions, which it does not. It only refers to elementary and middle schools and high schools, and so that's where some of that, again, more specific, detailed definition information was then able to be captured more specifically in the website for the public's information. And again, we continue to hear from folks on additional information that we could be clearer about or provide more information about.
Okay. And those clarifications would occur through the bylaw webpage?
Correct.
Yeah. Curious to know whether there is an intent to sort of publicize, data as it comes in. So whether we're looking at the number of service requests that are coming in regarding, implementation or enforcement of access areas, instances where enforcement is called to respond, police. Is there any plans on that by the city to make that information publicly available?
So, Chair, we're constantly looking for value-added information that's going to support the public's understanding of the bylaw and how it supports safe access to social infrastructure. So currently we have, as I mentioned before, the process by which you can, organizations and operators can request access areas, as well as the established access area sites by way of their addresses. We don't currently post service requests because most of them are general in nature, and where we may see trends that inform us that something is not clear because we're receiving a high frequency of the same type of request, then we would take that information and then adjust the information on our website to more proactively respond to what may be a trend in misunderstanding or further clarification required. We haven't seen that trend yet. There's been very minimal service requests and general inquiries, but we would be able to accommodate that. In terms of infractions, again, there have not been infractions, and we would take the same approach with that. If we're seeing that there is a reason to publicly post the nature of infractions and the locations of where those infractions took place, that was not unintentionally harmful to either the locations and or the populations that were affected, then we would contemplate what the value out of adding that information on a public website would be in order to best serve the needs of the population. So whether it was in order to ensure that, again, there was clarity on what the impact of the bylaw was or was not, or to demonstrate that that things were being responded to in a in a timely fashion or in a way that was within the confines of the bylaw, then we would consider if those things were, again, value added.
Okay.
I'm just going to note the time. If you want to come around for a second round, we can definitely do that. I see Nicholas is going to add his name to the list as well. But before we get to Nicholas for his questions, we're going to go online to Queen. Queen, you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead. And then I'll add you, Kendall, as well. No problem.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One similar to the last question that was asked. But my first question is, how will the city ensure that the bylaw doesn't unintentionally increase surveillance, policing, or enforcement against Black, Indigenous, unhoused, and queer bodies in public spaces? And then my other question is, will there be demographic-based impact data that's collected and shared publicly and reported so that communities can assess whether the bylaw is actually protecting or restricting?
So, Chair, to the first question on the unintended implications of the bylaw, certainly the bylaw applies to access areas, and the enforcement approach that was described both in the bylaw itself and in the previous presentations is one of education first, with the transportation standards officers attending the scene should there be a service request for that reason. And where police involvement is required based on the nature of behaviors and activities that are happening, then that is assessed on a case-by-case situational basis. And the bylaw is not intended to provide an avenue for escalation in that regard. It's actually the opposite. It's intended, as any bylaw, to be an education-first enforcement approach to ensure that there's clarity of information on what's allowable and what's not within the particular area that's in question. With respect to the demographic data, that's something that we've discussed with our data for equity team, our social development team, and the human rights department in the city. And it is a very, as I think this committee would appreciate, a very sensitive data set to be working with respect to disclosure of demographic data that may be misinterpreted by the broader community. And so what we would need to do is understand what is the nature of the data and how would it be interpreted as it relates to either enforcement activities or the outcome of those enforcement activities. And again, what is the value add from that perspective for the broader public, or where is it something that we need to take in-house and understand how there's potential implications of the bylaw with respect to any particular populations. So there is some boundaries that we need to be working within when it comes to the protection of privacy, but also the public display of data from a demographic perspective that may unintentionally harm those populations if it's not interpreted and managed in the right ways.
So based on your response, will you then have an external oversight committee that can also review this data?
So, Chair, we haven't looked at an external advisory committee because we do have internal divisions that have expertise in those areas.
All good, Queen? Yeah, thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Nicholas, and then potentially a second round. Go ahead, Nicholas. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you indicate what mechanisms are in place to detect racialized or discriminatory patterns in the service requests, enforcement actions, or access area denials?
So, Chair, as I mentioned, the service requests are typically general inquiries in nature. Similarly, we have not had any enforcement action through this bylaw. In terms of the data that's collected, I'm not aware that we would be collecting from a bylaw enforcement perspective any demographic type of data related to the enforcement activity. If there was enforcement, again, it would start with education first, and in those instances, there is not a collection of personal information when the exchange of information is happening between the transportation standards officers and the general public.
Thank you. So if no demographic data is being collected, then how will you know who is accessing, who is denied, or affected by these access areas?
So, Chair, when we engaged in the consultation process in the development of the bylaw, we heard loud and clear from the community writ large and specific communities, equity-deserving Black and Indigenous communities, that the bylaw, that the implementation of the bylaw may impact the feeling of people's right to freely express their democratic rights in respect of protests and demonstrations. What we're trying to understand through community feedback is how that is happening in community. It is very difficult to see that happen when it's a preventative feeling. So if folks do not, for example, come out to protest or demonstrate, it's not a situation where you can actually capture data on that unless we're hearing from representatives of that community that individuals are feeling that way or continue to not participate in the democratic process because of these types of bylaws, legislation, et cetera. So it almost kind of works the opposite of gathering data. Because people are not coming out, they would not be participating in demonstrations, and therefore perhaps wouldn't be going through the process of being, performing prohibitive actions and then going through the enforcement process. So it's kind of, we're looking at it from the community information and engagement process to understand those impacts.
And in terms of the 4 TSOs, can you advise of any culturally competent or anti-Black racism training that these TSOs may have received?
So I do have a colleague that may be online that can respond to the training. So let me just pause and see if that's possible. I do know, certainly, Chair, that the transit standards officers have been provided with training as they typically would for any bylaw implementation. But I'll just pause and see if we have a response from our transit.
Thanks, James. I do see Antonia has joined us online, Marcos. I'm not sure, Antonia, if you're able to respond to that question, but please go ahead and unmute if you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, all of our TSOs, or Transportation Standards Officers, go through general equity training. We are looking at ways in which we can enhance the training of these new TSOs for this Access to Social Infrastructure program. So yes, they do get general equity training, but they will be receiving specialized training as well.
Thank you. And in terms of reporting, how will the city publicly report on will the city publicly report on the bylaw impact? And will this committee have an opportunity to review and advise on any reports?
Chair, as I mentioned, in the data that we're reporting now is related to the access areas themselves. We have yet to receive any infractions related to this bylaw, and we would need to assess what the value of that information would be to the general public. In terms of the impact assessment, again, once we would gather data and understand any trends in that data, we would need to do an analysis and see where we could apply any lessons learned from that analysis and where that information is best positioned to be presented.
Thank you. And there are 47 access areas established as of October 30th. How many were requested by community groups versus institutions like places of worship or schools?
Last question. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Chair, we have the addresses posted online. I don't have the breakdown in front of me by institution, but I would say on the whole, the majority are places of worship, and then there are a few that are schools and childcare centers as well, but the majority are places of worship.
Great, thank you. We're going to go online to Kendall. Kendall, you can go ahead and unmute. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. I think questions were answered in the responses to Queen and Nicholas, but maybe I'll ask in a different way because I understand there hasn't been any infractions yet, but if there were to be infractions, would there be monitoring of who was being penalized under the bylaw? I think more specifically, if they decide to give data on enforcement actions, because I think for this committee, but for me specifically, I would want to understand that it's not being used to suppress Black civic engagement.
So, Chair, as I mentioned, certainly, yes, there has not been infractions, and I would, again, based on our consultation with our Data for Equity, Social Development, and Human Rights experts in the city, the demographic data, should it even be available, we'd have to see where along the process there would even be that data captured. We would need to assess what the potential impacts of A, collecting that data, and if that was even something we would do, and B, if we did collect it, how it would be used and how it would potentially be reported, if at all, based on some of the, as I mentioned earlier, the potential misinterpretations and issues that that type of data can be involved in with respect to being released publicly and not in a way that's safe for the communities that it represents.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kendall. We have, I think, a request for a second round, or was your question asked and answered? Is the committee open to a second round of questions? Yep. And will you have some follow-up as well, Nicholas? Okay. Walid, go ahead. You've got 5 more minutes.
Spoke so quickly, I didn't know how much time I had last time. Now I know I have 5 minutes. So I just want to appreciate that Bill 33 was just passed by the provincial legislature, so provincial government, and it mandates SRO programs in our schools. We talked about this bylaw not being enforced on campuses, university campuses, so that was an exception, and you can clarify if I'm mistaken, but schools, our school boards are still spaces where it's enforceable. So my question is, if we had our young, brilliant leaders in elementary schools or in high schools wanting to take some action, will this bylaw be enforced in those schools as social infrastructure? So that's the first question, and then I'll move on to the next.
Chair, the bylaw, for the point of clarification first, does not apply to post-secondary institutions. So that was the first point of clarification. And then secondly, with respect to the schools that it does apply to, first and foremost, independent individual schools, the owners and or operators of those schools would need to request an access area first in order for an access area to be established. So it's not a blanket approach with this bylaw. It just does not fall on every school that automatically there's an access area. So every school that believed that they had a potential need for this access area to be established would need to request one. When one is granted, then the second part to this is that one of the prohibited behaviors would need to be demonstrated within 50 meters of that access area in order for any enforcement activity to be initiated in the first place. So that's the second condition to be met in order for this to actually occur in the way that's being described. And then from there, again, we would initiate an education-first approach to the bylaw enforcement before any further escalation would take place. Okay. But sorry, and to be clear, peaceful protests, even within the established 50-meter access area, are not prohibited by this bylaw.
Okay, thanks for that. So peaceful protests are not prohibited, but with the SRO programs in Toronto District School Boards and TDSBs have now been taken over by the province, can they be theoretically instructed to designate those schools as safe? I don't know what the proper term is, but my worry is that there'll be violation of civil liberties of young people that don't know better on how to enforce their own rights. They'll have to be dependent on their parents.
Sorry to interject really quickly, Walid. I just want to suggest if you want to provide that in your speaking remarks in just one moment, because I think for the line of questioning, that's a little outside of the scope for what's before us, but I see where you're going with this, so I think for your remarks would be well placed. But if you want to ask another question, you've got 1 more minute.
Yeah, I'll save that for my remarks. What are the safeguards that can be put in place so that in our schools that there's a freedom to express whatever challenges those students or educators or specifically students, there are protests led by students on schools. So what are those safeguards to prevent the SRO program or police on enforcing that bylaw on schools?
So, Chair, again, the relationship between what you're speaking about from the provincial legislative perspective and this bylaw, I'm not sure about the interactions there, but with this bylaw, as I mentioned, there would need to be a request for an access area, and prohibited behaviors would need to be demonstrated in order for any enforcement to be initiated related to this bylaw in particular.
Thank you. Second round, one more from Lucina. Yeah, we'll do a quick one and then we'll go to speakers. So if you'd like to have 5 minutes to speak to this item, I'll call for a list in a moment. And Lucina, back over to you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So just perhaps like a follow-up from all the discussion and questions regarding transparency of data. I'm sensing there may be sort of reticence to publish data if it is not of, I suppose, public value, or yeah. But I'm wondering if there's a certain threshold of potential harm or data points or a threshold of time that you envision, like an analysis of data and implementation of the bylaw would be needed in order to deem that data of public interest, if that makes sense. Is there a threshold of time? Is there a threshold of harm? Because it's sounding like there is perhaps, again, that, the desire to kind of step back and see things unfold. And the concern is that it might be too late. One incident of harm is too many. So just curious if there is a threshold in mind for that data to be publicly available.
Chair, as was mentioned, so the data that would be captured within the process of the bylaw enforcement is unknown because we have not had any infractions. So with respect to, again, the bylaw enforcement approach, the first step in that approach, there would not be any enforcement data collected, demographic data collected in that enforcement approach. Where there may be data that is collected by third parties, such as if there are court proceedings related to the ticketing of behaviors that are related to the infractions, then that's a data point that would be captured in the court system. Further to that, if there were any other criminal behavior that was then captured within those scenarios, again, those data points would be captured by the enforcement bodies that would be involved in enforcing those aspects of the legal system. So it's not clear as to what data points the City A would actually have access to in that process, and B, again, from the value perspective of understanding, what are we actually trying to achieve by publishing that data. We would need to look at more of the analysis of that data on the whole before we made that determination. Because again, and I would agree with you, any harm is unacceptable. But at the same time, we also do not want to unintentionally create further harm by publishing data that has not been appropriately analyzed and or contextualized within the broader kind of situation with respect to whether it's enforcement or prevention of the harms that you're mentioning.
Great, thank you. I apologize, I should have put myself on the first order, but I am just going to ask a really quick few follow-up questions. Thank you for the update, and sounds like overall there has been, minimal impact. I'm wondering, you mentioned there have not been any enforcement actions associated with this. What does the future of this bylaw look like? If there continues to be, an apparent lack of need for it, is there a future where this would sunset? Is this something that we would continue indefinitely? Can you talk to us about sort of the future evaluation and usefulness of this bylaw, understanding that it was largely stood up in response to a moment in time, and we've, I think there's been a lot of changes to the circumstances since. So I'm wondering if you could just talk to us about how that's being considered.
Thanks, Chair. So our review of the bylaw would be ongoing with respect to its operationalization and any changes that would be and adjustments that would be required within the context of the staff's implementation and ongoing operationalization of the bylaw. Should council wish to revisit the existence of the bylaw on the whole, a member of council would be required to bring a motion forward to direct staff to do that type of analysis and report back on the continued utility of the bylaw.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll leave it there, and we're going to turn to speakers. And with our thanks again to Vanessa and James for the opportunity to get an update and to have a dialogue on this bylaw. Just looking for members of the committee who wish to speak on this item. Waleed, are you good? I got you down. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none. Waleed, go ahead. We'll give you your 5, and we'll move on to our next item from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to raise serious concerns about the safe access to social infrastructure bylaw and how it interacts with emerging provincial legislation, most notably Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Students Act. This is a new piece of legislation that just got passed. And taken together, these developments represent a widening of police authority in public spaces, including those used disproportionately by disproportionately on Black residents. Our community centers, youth hubs, drop-in, schools, libraries, and social services spaces. So the Safe Access to Social Infrastructure bylaw introduces new enforcement powers at the exact same moment the province is moving forward with mandatory school resource officers programs under Bill 33. Bill 33 requires all school boards to work with local police services to implement SRO programs, removing the ability of school boards and communities to decide what is appropriate for their students. It gives the province regulatory power to set standards for police access and participation in school programming, overriding locally negotiated protocols. We know from Toronto's own histories that SROs contributed to over-surveillance and criminalization of Black students. These concerns were documented through years of research, lived experience, and community advocacy. Bill 33, we know, has reversed that progress. When we map this new bylaw and Bill 33 together, concerning pattern emerges. There'll be more police discretion in community spaces and social infrastructure. There'll be more police authority inside schools with mandatory access, more power centralized at the provincial level, taking decision-making away from local boards and communities, less ability for communities, particularly Black communities, to shape safety in ways aligned with equity and their lived experience. The Ontario Human Rights Commission has warned that mandatory SRO programs risk further harming racialized students, especially Black students who have already reported disproportionate negative impacts. The Ontario Bar Association has recommended replacing the mandatory shall with may to restore discretion and local oversight. That is an important signal. And I just want to remind folks that against this backdrop, we now have a Toronto bylaw that will expand the regulated perimeter around community spaces, introduces significant enforcement mechanisms, and creates the potential for increased interactions between police, our schools, and marginalized residents. We also know that the CCLA is launching a charter challenge against a nearly identical bubble zone bylaw in Vaughan, with similar concerns in Oakville, Brampton, and now Toronto. Any restrictions on public assembly must be carefully scrutinized, especially when history shows that Black community members are disproportionately stopped, questioned, and ticketed in public spaces. Without explicit safeguards, this bylaw risks escalating enforcement in low-income racialized neighborhoods, criminalizing youth gathering outside community centers or schools, restricting legitimate community advocacy, protest, or mutual aid, and increasing police presence in spaces where community members already report feeling over-surveilled. Many of the partnerships between communities and institutions, whether school boards, community centers, libraries, or housing providers, have been shaped through years of dialogue and equity work. This legislation that just passed disrupts those locally shaped relationships by mandating police participation. I worry about the lack of collecting disaggregated race-based data when it comes to enforcement of this bylaw. And I'm glad that there hasn't been any recent cases of a breach of the bylaw, but I think it's really important for us as a committee to talk about how this could set precedents. And I want to challenge members of our advisory committee to speak to, what advice can we offer the city when this bylaw has already been passed and now is in the implementation phase? Thank you.
Thanks, Waleed. I understand also there's a motion on the floor from Lucina, so you'll need to speak just to introduce your motion and provide any comments related to that, and then we'll put it to a vote. Go ahead, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So members, I do have a motion. I'll begin by just reading out my proposal and then sort of speaking to it afterwards. So the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee recommends that the city manager, in consultation with relevant city divisions, consider enhancing the currently available public data related to access areas and provide updates monthly. That includes a map and searchable register of all access areas and the following operational metrics for public review. So A, the number of access area requests received, granted, denied, and withdrawn. The ward and type of social infrastructure institution, whether it be child care center, elementary, middle, or high school, as well as place of worship. C, the service requests, bylaw infractions, enforcement actions, and any associated police involvement. And D, the number and nature of complaints and resolutions related to access areas received by the city. Second part of the motion is that the city manager, in consultation with relevant city divisions, consider including additional information on enforcement protocols on the city's webpage, which could include clearly outlining de-escalation strategies practiced by transportation standards officers when engaged. And finally, the third part of the motion reads, the city manager, in consultation with relevant city divisions, consider commissioning the development of an independent equity impact framework and assessment no later than fourth quarter of 2026 to evaluate possible unintended harms to equity-deserving communities within Toronto, including commitments to collecting the necessary privacy-compliant data. So I'll just speak quickly to rationale for the motion. So I'm putting forward the motion because our job as CABRAC is to not only advise, but to ensure that the city's policies that are intended to promote safety do not inadvertently create inequities or new risks for Black communities and other equity-deserving groups. And so the Access Areas Bylaw is a significant new tool that restricts certain activities around thousands of institutions across the city, potentially. So it is purported to protect communities from hate and targeted harassment, but protecting communities also requires transparency, oversight, and evidence that the tool is working as intended. And so right now, it is still early in implementation, but there are key gaps that limit our and the public's understanding of how access areas are being used. We know they're being established, but not enough to know where, why, by whom, and with what impact. And without clear, accessible information, it is difficult to distinguish between appropriate use and potential overreach, and that erodes confidence in a policy that is meant to enhance safety. And so that's why the first part of the motion focuses on transparency. I'm recommending that the city make available a simple public dashboard that is interactive and that shows where access areas exist, the types of institutions that are involved, and how many applications are being granted or denied, and what kinds of enforcement actions are taking place. This level of transparency benefits everyone, residents, community institutions, and City Council itself. It allows us to collectively assess whether the bylaw is functioning responsibly and equitably. Second, the motion asks for clear information on enforcement. And so the involvement of transportation standards officers and potentially police raises and has raised repeatedly legitimate concerns from communities that have historically experienced disproportionate enforcement. And so by publicly strengthening the level of information on de-escalation strategies, protocols, and expectations, the city can demonstrate that enforcement is measured, appropriate, and grounded in community safety principles. Public clarity reduces the risk of confusion, distress, and unintended harm. Third, and most importantly, my motion calls for an independent equity impact framework and assessment. And so as a committee focused on confronting anti-Black racism, we have a responsibility to anticipate and monitor possible unintended consequences, particularly for Black communities, racialized residents, Palestinians, newcomers, Muslim and Jewish communities, to us LGBTQIA communities, and others who may be seeking protection, but also experiencing disproportionate enforcement in other contexts. This independent assessment will help determine, are access areas truly keeping people safer? Are they being used consistently and equitably across the city? Are there any unintended impacts on community expression, civic engagement, or policing? And what adjustments can be made so that the bylaw fulfills its promise without creating new harms? Requiring this work by 2026 gives the city time to collect data, observe implementation, and then evaluate outcomes in a careful and evidence way. This is about aligning the bylaw with Toronto's commitments to equity, human rights, and anti-racism. Thanks.
Good job, Lucina. Thank you so much. I see some applause. People ready to applaud. That was really, really great. I think really thoughtful motion and some additional considerations for the team, James and City Manager, to take back. So seeing no additional speakers, we have a motion on the floor.
I just wonder, Lucina, if it's okay to add to your motion a clause that requests a coordinated review of the interaction between this bylaw and Bill 33 and its impact on Black students and families. I still don't think I've got the adequate responses to appreciate what that means to students, Black students and families in the city of Toronto.
I would suggest that the clerks would need to review that suggested amendment just for appropriateness and procedurally whether it makes sense as part of this. So we can set this aside if clerks want to take that away, or Lucina, you can also, first of all, speak if you're open to an amendment on that, or if you'd like to proceed with the motion as is.
Wondering if it could be added as another motion, perhaps in consultation with clerks. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll leave it as is. I see Karis on the screen. Go ahead, Karis. You want to ask a question of the mover or speak to the item?
I would like to make a friendly addition to the motion. The first point where it was asking for a list of requests, if we could, where it was asking for a number of requests, if we can also add a number and list of requests so we could see where the requests are coming from.
So the addresses are already currently available, Karis, online as part of the data collected. So I think that that's covered off. That's a fair assessment? But Lucina, you could speak to.
I believe only the granted areas are posted. I think maybe Karis is referring to applicants or folks who are seeking access areas. Am I correct, Karis?
Yeah. Yes, because if you look at the wording of the motion, it's asking for people who have requested, who have been denied, and so on. So we get a full list. So if we say, if we're talking about the numbers, we can also ask for the list so we see who has been requested, who have requested and who have been denied, and so on. So we could see all of it could be transparent.
So just through the chair, if the intent of the member is to have all applications, including those approved and applied and denied, the spirit of and the text of A provides that. It says number of access areas requests received, granted, denied, and withdrawn. So that is already captured in that language if that's the intent of the member.
Are you comfortable with that, Karis? So it sounds like we'll get back the information that you're seeking as the wording, in the form of the motion as it stands.
I'm not clear that number means list. So that's where I need some clarification. Because if you have a number, it's a number.
Right.
But you don't know what are who are the applicants and so on. So that's where I'm not clear. And if that's clear, then I agree.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take that back. Staff are going to take that back as part of their collaborative work with City Manager's office on this motion. So the point is taken, and we will endeavor to ensure that the level of clarity and information is under consideration and goes directly to the City Manager. So thank you so much for that motion, Lucina. The motion is on the floor. All members in favor of the motion, sorry. Is there an intention for an additional motion on this item at this time?
I will speak to my colleagues and bring forward another motion with regards to Bill 33.
Okay.
I think this motion as it reads is fine.
It stands well.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you, Clerk, for keeping us in check. So the motion is on the floor. All in favor? Looking online, show of hands. Thank you so much. Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. So we'll look to receive the item as amended. No recs. Okay, so we're all good with this item. Thank you, colleagues, for the great discussion, great questions, and really solid motion. Lucina, we'll look forward to our continued work with the City Manager's office and continuing to be a body of advice for all of you. And thanks again to James and Vanessa for joining us. So we are going to move on, folks. We do have a couple of, we have a speaker registered for the next couple of items as well. So just wanting to note that we will have a speaker on the next few items. And the next is our CR 8.2, Toronto Senior Strategy Community Consultations. This is an item that I'm quite passionate about as a member of the long-term oversight body that I've joined recently, our long-term care for seniors in the city. And we're really excited about the work that's happening there. We see a growing number of Black residents aging with varied levels of supports and limited knowledge of how to navigate and access our social services systems and programs. We're in the process of developing our Senior Strategy 3.0 and want to welcome staff who will be presenting today. Nicole Welch, General Manager. I don't see Nicole in the room. Okay, no problem. But Leslie is joining us. Leslie McCallum, Director of Senior Services and Community Programs, is here along with her colleague, who I'm sure she will introduce, from Senior Services and Long-Term Care. We will receive a presentation. We do have a speaker, and then we will go to questions of the committee. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us. The floor is yours. We'll run your time and look forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you to the committee for allowing us to present an update on the development of the senior strategy.
Just want to make sure your mic is on and that it's coming through clearly. One more time.
Testing.
There, that's better. Yeah, there you go.
I'll just lean in. So again, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for providing us with an opportunity to come to this committee to give you an update on the development of the third Toronto Senior Strategy. As the Chair mentioned, I'm Leslie McCallum. I'm the Director of Senior Services and Community Programs in Senior Services and Long-Term Care Division, and with me is my colleague, John Wilson, and he is the manager of the Senior Services team heading up the strategy. So the purpose of our presentation today is to take you through a very kind of brief context of the senior strategy. We'll then take you through the process that we went through to engage seniors across the city in our consultation process, give you a couple of highlights of what we've learned from that consultation, and then invite your input. So just in terms of, by way of background, building on the success of the first two strategies, City Council provided us with direction in June of 2024 to move forward with the development of the third Toronto Senior Strategy. The purpose of that strategy is to ensure that we are addressing policy, service, and resource priorities of Toronto's growing seniors population. This strategy is focused on aging in place, and how we define that is really enabling our seniors and older adults to live safely, independently, and comfortably in their homes and communities. So aging in place as a concept is moving beyond just the four walls that people would be residing in to actually how they are able to move through their communities, access services in their communities, and join together to break social isolation. We also know, and very aware, this committee is aware of this, which is there are inequities that affect people in different ways. And so this consultation process was built with an intentional lens on ensuring that we were going to be addressing the voices of older adults, seniors in our Black, Indigenous, and equity-deserving populations. And you'll see as I take you through the multimodal consultation process that this is built into every piece of what we do. It wasn't simply a checkbox on the side of our desks. So in terms of the actual framework that we used, starting with the first phase, there were 3 phases to this process. One was engaging our partners in developing their tools. And early on, we engaged with the CABR unit to ensure that what we were doing, again, was addressing the needs of Black, Indigenous, and equity-deserving groups. We also engaged with the IAO for the indigeneity piece as well. We then unfolded our citywide consultation process. We started this in the spring of 2025, wrapping up in June of 2025, and it was a multimodal process which included a survey, an online survey that went out to all seniors in Toronto, or was promoted for all seniors to access in Toronto. We also had community workshops that we developed, as well as focus groups that were specifically co-developed with community-based organizations, knowing that our Black, Indigenous, and equity-deserving folks would be less likely to participate in a survey. And that came from information we received during our early phases of developing the actual process. The other piece, not to forget also, is that we were not doing this work alone. In addition to some of the specialized units that we consulted with, we also engaged the Toronto Seniors Strategy Accountability Table throughout this process, and that is a purpose-built table that was designed to actually help guide the development of the strategy, previous strategy, and this one as well as to hold us accountable, that when the actions are actually developed and passed through council, that we actually deliver against those actions. This is a table with over 20 city agencies and divisions, as well as 80 community-based organizations and healthcare providers, and specifically 2 Black mandate organizations, Taibu Community Health, as well as the Caribbean African Canadian Social Services. So just by way of the actual process, I'm going to focus on the consultation methods and the supports. We implemented this citywide process that was approved by council, and we started, obviously it's to enhance our understanding of the needs and priorities of seniors and older adults living in the city of Toronto. And we engage seniors using a variety of processes. So the first was our online survey, and that was pushed out towards the end of January. It was live for 6 or 7 weeks, heavily promoted through social media and through various other services, including posters that went up in Toronto Senior Housing Corporation buildings and our TPLs and other senior serving organizations. We also held workshops across the city of Toronto, 6 in total, and those were small discussion groups with folks at tables, 8 to 10 people at tables, facilitated by our team. And then the third piece was our focus groups. These focus groups were specifically designed to be able to speak and consult with our Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving groups. These focus groups were co-designed with the community-based organizations who serve those populations. And the purpose for doing that was we wanted to ensure that it was a safe and trusted environment for these seniors to enter into so that they could share their views. We also held key informant interviews to engage our subject matter expertise, so folks who were leading community-based organizations serving seniors. A couple of other things we did to support the promotion and the actual delivery of these groups was we actually held pop-up events to support and promote the online completion of the survey. So our staff went out to events and activities that were being held for seniors, and they were there with iPads or with tablets to be able to actually help seniors in situation be able to complete the survey, or to talk to them about the survey and show them how to navigate so that they could complete it on their own at home. We also, thinking about equity, language was very important to us, so we also had in-person translation at our workshops, so that because we were delivering them through some of our rec centers and our Toronto Public Libraries, they were able to let us know what the most highly spoken languages were other than English in those settings, and so we had live translation available at those places. We also had honoraria that we provided, and of course, we all know food is a collection and a gathering point for people, so we provided refreshments at all of our workshops and focus groups. So just in terms of our reach of, what did this all amount to? It amounted to just over 5,400 seniors and older adults who actually participated in our consultation process, which included our survey, our workshops, and our focus groups. We also ran 43 community-based organization key informants. And the other piece to add is that we also consulted with 12 community coordination plan clusters. And of those 12 clusters, 10 of them are geographically based, and 2 of them are not geographically based. So one was the Black Resistance cluster, and the second one is the cluster for newcomers. So within those, again, we got another very focused lens on the Black community. So in terms of our general reflections coming out of once we collected all of this data, like what did it tell us? And I think it's really important to note that seniors and older adults' experiences and priorities really are cross-cutting. So what we heard in our consultations across the city, we're also hearing from other groups as well. So affordability, safety, navigating the city, these are things that are not exclusive to seniors, but they're certainly being raised by seniors. We also know that for participants who are Indigenous, Black, and members of the equity-deserving communities, their experiences of ageism as being senior also interacted with very many other systemic barriers and discrimination that they have faced throughout their lives. So that's a little bit of a different piece that our Black seniors would be experiencing that other seniors may not be experiencing. The thing that we heard over and over, which was a very interesting reflection point for our team, is that seniors told us that growing old in Toronto is actually a skill that you need to learn, that it's not just a chronological thing, that you actually, you have to adapt and you have to learn how to do things differently. And we found that really, really interesting as an insight. So, people would describe to us, I used to just grab my keys and go to the elevator to go to a doctor's appointment. Now I have to think, is the elevator going to be working? When I get to downstairs, is someone going to be able to meet me at the door? When I get outside, has the sidewalk been cleared? Is it going to be slippery? Is it raining? When I get to the TTC, and all of these multiple decisions, well, what they say is they get actually really good at it. Some people get very good at it. It still means they need more time, though. They do need time. So it was a very interesting observation that is a more positive look than it is negative, right? It's not they're just getting, it's like, I can develop new skills. So that was interesting. We also know that seniors are experiencing lingering impacts of COVID, perhaps more than other groups, particularly when it comes to social isolation and their hesitation to enter back into social environments. They really were so cut off that's another thing where seniors would say to us, I used to go to a chair yoga class and I didn't care if I knew anybody there, but now I need to know there's a familiar face there. I want someone to come with me. I want to know I'm not going to be alone. So we do know that COVID had quite an impact on them. We also know 73% of the survey respondents said, if given the choice, they would like to age in place. Now, that may not be in the four walls they're actually in right now, but they want to stay within their communities. And the other good news is across the modalities, there was strong alignment as to what those key priorities were that kind of bubbled to the surface. So our preliminary themes, there are 6 of them that emerged from our data analysis. They're on the screen here. The first is getting around the city with ease and safety. So that again speaks to what's happening outside the 4 walls they may live in. The second one is safety and stability at home and in community. The third is social connection and access to in-home supports. Fourth is affordability. Fifth is service navigation and system literacy. And the 6th then is staff readiness to support seniors. These are, by the way, in no means ranked in orders of importance, and they actually interact with each other. So very quickly, I'll just go through the 6 priorities. The first being getting around the city with ease. We certainly heard throughout our consultation process that physical safety and accessibility frequently came up from our seniors. Some are deterred from participating in social life, again, that breaking that social isolation because of their lack of sense of safety or ability to navigate safely. Accessibility and well-maintained facilities came up as a piece that would fit within that theme or priority. And they also expressed a desire for enhanced access to things like wheel-trans, accessibility of sidewalks, pedestrian signals, that type of thing. Second was safety and stability at home and in the community. And they really, in here, were really talking to us about situations that ranged from, I'm afraid of falling in my unit when I live alone and nobody being able to help me, as one thing, to also looking at, and we know it is pervasive, frauds and scams, and seniors feeling particularly at an increased vulnerability to frauds and scams. So that's kind of when it came to their safety and stability in their homes. Falls as well as frauds and scams were the kind of pervasive things that came up. Third, and so important, is access to in-home supports as well as social connection. And the in-home supports are really what seniors said would allow them to be able to age in place. And in many cases, it is things like assistance with grocery shopping. It is things like light housekeeping. It is, there are small things that actually make big differences that enable people to stay in their homes. And then the fourth is affordability, and that is one that I don't have to probably address in any detail. Affordability in the city is a rising concern of seniors. And so that is something that is a key priority for us. Our fifth is service navigation and system literacy. And one of the things that came up on here is that it's not necessarily that seniors don't know how to access on computers. It's that the keywords that they're using are not the keywords that are happening at the back end. And so just making things easier for them so that they can navigate is really important, as well as for those who need access to Wi-Fi and do need some literacy training. And of course, TPL does an excellent job at some of this work. And then our sixth was just staff readiness to support seniors. We heard time and time again from seniors overwhelmingly positive comments about how helpful people are and how wonderful the city staff are at assisting. But there's always going to be circumstances where, for instance, someone with early stages of dementia may ask a city staffer like the same question 3 times because they're trying to process it and they're told, like, move along, there's a lineup. So those are the things that just staff readiness will be an important piece. So then in terms of our immediate next steps, we are finalizing our What We Heard report, which will track along with the Toronto Senior Strategy. And the actual strategy itself will be tracking to ECDC in April, followed by City Council at the end of April. And so at this point, just really interested to hear, like, if this, what we've heard and the priorities that we've identified resonate with what you hear in the communities, and if something is different, we would love to hear about that as well. And then if anyone has on the top of their head things that we feel we should be prioritizing over the next, our first term action plan will be till 2028. Is there anything that we should be prioritizing in terms of the Black community?
Thank you so much, Leslie and John, for taking us through that presentation. While our colleagues on the advisory think about those questions, we do have a registered speaker on this item. So we are going to give 5 minutes, and you can stay right there. I believe Miguel is joining us online today. Miguel, if you're with us, we're going to turn to you as the speaker on this item. You've got 5 minutes. Please go ahead. You can address the committee.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. So, good morning. My name is Miguel. I am indigenous from South America. I live in a building that is a mix of Black, indigenous, people of color, Asians, etc., etc. So I very grateful to address this committee and share with you all my indigenous experience and living experience. I'm a 60-year-old man. I just turned 60, by the way. So I'm a young senior, and I'm aging in place in the building 220 Oak Street in Regent Park. Our building at one time was categorized as seniors building with Ontario Housing Corporation, before the big amalgamation and downloading of the province to the municipalities. And boom, TCSC was born out of that amalgamation. So over time, our old residents start to pass away. But increasingly and more critical during the pandemic, we lost a lot of residents due to the pandemic, due to addictions, due to jumping off the balconies, suicides, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in 2020, the Housing Secretariat came up with an amazing strategy to deal with the housing with incumbents and the shelter and the demand for our housing crisis to find housing. The problem is that this strategy was not consulted with the residents of 220 Oak Street, because now we are living in a situation where our lives are being disrupted because of noises that happen during the night. These are the complications or unintended consequences, lack of oversight from the Housing Secretariat that has allowed residents out of the shelters and encampments without going to transitional housing and putting them in place in a building that, as I mentioned before, it was considered to be a seniors building. I lived in this building for 15 years. Out of those 15 years, 13 years, I live in peace and harmony. I never complain about noises during the night. But as I said, the Housing Secretariat has this amazing plan, which I supported, because we are addressing what we know, that the Black and indigenous peoples are overrepresented in the city encampments, not to mention also jails, hospitals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I support that, but we have become the victims, of this strategy, because the noises are keeping us awake. Many of our newcomers are suffering with mental health, addictions, traumas, and the worst part is that they stay awake all night. I'm an old man, my friends, and all I need is 8 hours of sleep. And today I'm from home instead of being a city hall, which is always my home, away from home. But at 1:30 this morning, I was awakened by 78 decibels of noises. Imagine that. I had lost hearing. My mental and physical health has deteriorated. So if you are putting in place a new strategy for seniors, please consider to select the residents that are moving into an old age building where the residents, all that they want is the peace and enjoyment of their unit, not to be waking up by banging noises, loud noises, etc., etc., etc. Please be sensible, be considerate that these old people, including myself, all they want to do is help others. I help my community in Regent Park. I'm a member of many organizations, but I cannot function in this way. I need a solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel, for sharing your experiences and attending the meeting today. I believe procedurally I will ask members if they have any questions for the speaker. For the speaker, or first to the speaker? I'm not seeing any questions.
Questions, staff.
Okay, and now I'll proceed to questions to staff. So we'll take a list. And Waleed. And Queen as well.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Can we make referrals like in the question period, or does that come after?
This is the questions to staff. So we'll do questions first, and then Queen we'll do a round of speaking to the item. But I'll go down my list. So for questions, we'll go to Nicholas first. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for your presentation. And in terms of the survey that was conducted, how many Black seniors were included in that 5,400?
So the 5,400 includes not only just the survey, but also our workshops, the various modalities. Based on our best practices and consulting with groups, we did not, for the focus groups and the workshops, collect any personal data. So I can't extract out those, but I can say that for the actual survey, which we were anticipating based on our conversations with the CABR unit, a low response rate from Blacks, 3% of the survey respondents were Black, and we anticipated that, which is why we actually developed those co-created focus groups specifically for Black, Indigenous, and equity-deserving groups so that we could get their voices through that.
So if 3% of that 5,400,
not 3% of the 5,400, 3% of the survey respondents.
okay. And how many were the survey respondents?
About 5,100, yeah, 5,100.
So 5,100 participants completed the survey.
Correct.
And 3% of that are Black people.
Identified as Black, yes.
Okay. Can you advise of how long was the survey open for?
6 weeks.
Okay. And can you advise of what steps were taken to recognizing that there might have been online barriers and for people accessing the survey? Were there any in-personal attempts or steps to connect with the Black community that way, other than through organizations like CAFCAN, which is great. So thank you for that, connecting with organizations like that. Were there any in-person attempts with regards to the survey side of things, not the workshops or any of those?
So we did hold pop-up events. We'll have to see exactly where they were. We did hold pop-up events, and that is where our team were there in person, there to support seniors who were attending programming to either complete the survey. We would assist them to complete it or gave them all the directions they needed to complete it on their own at home. Just looking up to see if we were at any Black serving organizations for those pop-ups. Sorry, John.
Through the chair. So we held 11 pop-ups throughout the city with community partners in various parts of the city. One of the pop-ups was held with the Rexdale Community Health Center. One of the pop-ups was held at Taibu. We also held pop-ups in Parkdale and York Fairbank Center for Seniors. I can go through the list of the 11, but predominantly we worked with community-based organizations and made sure that our staff were on site on days when things like dental clinics, health clinics, other programming was being offered on site so that we would be able to connect with as many seniors accessing those programs as possible.
Thank you. In terms of it seems already that there's a disproportionate impact to Black seniors. Can you advise, what is the Black seniors, the population in Toronto from census data? Are you familiar with what that is?
6% based on the census data from 2021, 6% of the population of the city.
And what is that number?
Don't have it, but I can do it. I don't have that number offhand.
Okay.
28,450.
So we
Thanks, Garris. And I got you on a question coming up. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. So we have approximately 28,000 Black seniors in this city, and through this survey and other means, we were only able to reach a very small fraction of that number. So can you indicate what steps the city is taking to ensure that that Black seniors are fully accounted for in this plan? Can you advise on that?
Thanks, Nicholas. That will be your last question for now. We can go for a second. Go ahead, Leslie.
So through the chair, yes, so in addition to the actual Black seniors who we consulted with, we also consulted with community-led organizations that had mandates to serve the Black community, as well as many other community-based organizations who are serving the Black community. And so through them, we were also learning about the priorities and needs of the individuals that they serve. So that's the other way to make sure that we kind of had a robust understanding of the community.
Thank you. I have the list here, and thank you to the Vice Chair. Just to confirm, next I have Waleed. We'll go to May after that, then online to Queen, and then to Karis. Is there anybody else who'd like to be added? Yep, I got you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you so much. So, Waleed, you've got 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leslie, for your presentation. I have 7 points to raise, but I just noted that in the consultations, neighborhood associations were not listed, and I remember sharing this advice to other departments. It's critically important to reach out to the members of FOSTRA and FONTRA when you're trying to get feedback or survey results. So just want to note that I sent a motion to our clerk on this item. So the first point is missing disaggregated race-based data. This report notes broad themes, but I couldn't take away any disaggregated race-based data, and it's really important for us to collect this information so that both CABRAC, which is an advisory body to the City Council, can properly assess whether Black seniors are equitably supported or disproportionately at risk. The second is collaboration with Toronto Community Housing. Many Black seniors rely on public housing. The city has a dedicated initiative. Toronto Community Housing has a dedicated initiative, the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People. So I'm wondering if there's any consultation with that center on how to inform the senior strategy, specifically around systemic barriers, accessibility, evictions, safety, and navigating aging in Toronto Community Housing buildings. So what mechanisms would be put in place to ensure regular coordination between your office and TCHC, especially for seniors aging in place? Next is collaboration with Toronto Community Housing. Toronto Seniors. I always mix up this too. The Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation serves thousands of low-income and racialized seniors, including many Black tenants. So were they involved in the consultation, and why is their role not explicitly referenced in the report? If so, and will the senior strategy include shared benchmarks and indicators with Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation to track evictions, measure aging in place supports, identify unmet accessibility needs, and improve safety and quality of care? The theme of aging in place resonates with me. I have parents who are seniors. I know that's important. And the other thing that really worries me is forced displacement. So the report states that 44% of seniors hope to age in place, but unsure they can. We heard real examples, including at this committee, where we had a senior, Zuleha, she came to speak to this committee, who was displaced, who was evicted from social housing. So how does the strategy intend to respond to seniors who are already being forced out, and how will our city prevent these situations from recurring? Equity benchmarks and accountability. So what specific equity benchmarks will be used to measure the strategy's success for Black seniors, low-income seniors, seniors in public housing, seniors with disabilities, because we know that without benchmarks, we cannot evaluate whether the strategy is reducing systemic barriers or simply documenting them. Integration of anti-Black racism framework. So I will have loved to appreciate in your report how your findings are aligned with our action plan, the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People, and CABRAC's recognition, or when it comes to the importance of collecting disaggregated race-based data, equity metrics, and partnership with Toronto Community Housing and Toronto Seniors Housing Corp. And lastly, I just want to say, I'm trying to appreciate what interventions exist or should exist, I'll say that, for seniors experiencing eviction, unsafe conditions, loss of home care, food insecurity, and isolation. Like, what are those programs that exist that folks in our community could tap into or make referrals to? So I'll leave it at that.
Lots to chew on. Hopefully there's a couple other questions, excuse me, that you can pull out of that in reply, and we'll turn it over to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me start, thank you, through the chair. Let me start by addressing Toronto Senior Housing Corporation as well as TCHC. They are a division that we are actively engaged in. We actually, my division, or my portfolio actually runs programs, social housing programs in TSHC buildings. So they are very involved, and they have certainly been part, when we look to next steps, part of developing actions for that first term action plan that will help address the priorities that have been identified. In terms of, and I'll come back to the issue of evictions or unsafe buildings, I mean, state of good repair, that is something obviously that's within TSHC and TCHC's purview, but in terms of evictions, one of the things that we did hear from seniors was, and it was brought up by our speaker, residents who are experiencing mental health crises or actually have ongoing mental health issues. And that is something that we will need to be addressing. Obviously, healthcare is a provincial mandate, not a municipal mandate, but the wrapping around of services around individuals is something that we can help facilitate.
Great, thank you. And I will just always, as always, encourage colleagues to connect with staff directly as well if there's a level of specificity that you're looking for, or any other particular questions that we weren't able to capture here today. But I do want to keep us moving and mindful of everyone's time. Next on our list for questions is May. Go ahead, May, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for your presentation. My question is in relation to one of the goals that focus on inequities in access to services for aging in place, and you mentioned wanting to help support facilitating wraparound services. My question is, are there any plans to take action to improve access to healthcare for Black seniors in our city, given the well-documented ways that anti-Black racism impacts health outcomes and contributes to chronic illness.
Through the chair, healthcare is beyond the scope of our municipal mandate, but again, collaborating across Ontario Health Teams. So we had Ontario Health Teams as they are part of our Toronto Seniors Accountability Table, and we consulted with them. So in terms of what can we do as a municipality to work with them, absolutely. We ourselves can't pull a lever on healthcare related things because it's beyond the scope of what we can do. But there are ways to certainly collaborate and ensure that we are identifying when additional supports are required and making those connections. I think in terms of connection and access to services, part of that will also come through how we improve the system navigation for folks. We did hear quite clearly from seniors around system navigation when they would bring up healthcare and we would say that's beyond the scope of a municipal mandate. We were reminded that they are citizens of Toronto and we should be collaborating more closely to make sure that the system navigation is not just sorry, this is beyond our mandate. So that did come up and we need to be looking at that.
All good, May? Yeah, thank you so much. Great. Next questioner on my list is Queen online. Go ahead, Queen, you've got 5 minutes.
Yes, I had more like feedback, but I can formulate them into questions. So
okay, you also can take an opportunity to speak and have 5 minutes to just speak on the item if you want, or you want to form it into a question?
I guess I can form them into questions.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just looking at my notes. So is there a plan to dedicate funding and have dedicated partnerships with community organizations that can do, outreach, peer navigation, wellness check-ins, culturally grounded programming for seniors because they already hold relationships with the seniors in those communities? And then my other question is around, we spoke a little bit about systems navigation and digital barriers. So I was wondering, will there be like a central line, like where there will be like a person behind it that seniors can call, that's also available like in multiple languages that can provide seniors with information on supports?
So through the chair, and thank you for the question, we are in the process right now of developing the actions for the first term of the action plan that will address the priorities that have been identified. So that is in the works right now in terms of how we will be addressing what we heard through the consultations. And that is the piece that we'll be tracking to council and a committee of council in April.
Great, all good, Queen? Yeah. And sounds like those are very strong suggestions and recommendations that I know the team will take back as part of their work to continue to stand up the action items for the senior strategy, and look forward to hopefully you can underscore that in your remarks. And next online, we have Karis for questions. Karis, you've got 5 minutes, questions of staff. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the presentation. The first question I have is because I've heard 2 sets of numbers from you, is how many students, how many seniors in total participated in the data gathering for this report?
That was 5,400, and the 5,100 was specifically to the survey, the online survey that was completed.
So it's about 10,000 in total?
No, it's 5,400 in total, of which 5,100 were the online survey.
Okay, so
and roughly 300, just over 300 for the other modes.
Okay, so given that we have over 1 million seniors in Toronto, I would say that that's a really low number of seniors. So perhaps you might want to look at how you're accessing the seniors for future data gathering situation. So the next question is, to what extent were seniors included in the construction of the data gathering tools for this strategy?
Through the chair, Karis, we brought the framework that we were using to consult with seniors to the Toronto Seniors Forum. So we were able to tap that program advisory body and their expertise. We also brought the framework that we were using and the tools to the Toronto Senior Strategy Accountability Table for their feedback as well. And there are seniors on that body.
The reason I asked the question is because I noticed in the presentation that seniors, they were directed to online responses. And in my experience on the Toronto Senior Forum, many of the seniors were not computer literate in that way, the seniors that we interacted with outside of the forum. And so I wonder if this was a barrier, if the method of data gathering might have been a barrier to the responses, to the number of responses that seniors from seniors for this particular survey.
Through the chair, yes. The method used for the survey would be a barrier to seniors who lack access to internet or who lack digital literacy skills. The use of the online survey was a limitation of the city and the tools that we use. Acknowledging that limitation was part of the drivers that led us to the multimodal approach, and also led us to taking steps like the 11 pop-ups that we held in spaces that seniors were frequenting, and my team's, agreeing or working with seniors who wanted to complete the survey in person using the tablets that we provided. We also promoted, to the question of promotion, we also promoted the workshops and the various, we promoted the workshops and the various other kind of data gathering opportunities through quite a large network of community-based organizations, including, as I said, or as Leslie mentioned, the 80-odd organizations that are part of the Seniors Accountability Table, through all of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation buildings, through all of the TCHC buildings as well. We also promoted the events and the survey through Toronto Public Library locations, as well as City of Toronto Parks and Rec centers. So there was quite a bit of promotion in terms of the survey and the community workshops, which were public events. So we did try to maximize opportunities for individuals to participate and to share their feedback freely, though to your point, the use of a online-only survey would be a limitation. We also encouraged, just on the matter of focus groups, we also encouraged those organizations that were partnered with us that had direct lines and trust with equity-deserving communities to promote all of these events through their channels as well, hoping to leverage their connections and their relationship with equity-deserving seniors.
Thanks, John. Would you like to sneak in another question, Karis?
Could I respond?
You can do speaking remarks in a moment. We just have 2 more questioners, and then we can come to you for some remarks. Okay, you'll have 5 more minutes if you'd like. Okay,
thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, with their first set of questions, as our new committee members, Makiba, go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Hi, and thank you so much for the presentation today. The work sounds timely and necessary, and looking forward to it. My first question is, could you elaborate a little bit on how the events and pop-up locations were selected to support participation, and just to make sure that those communities were being accessed equitably? Is there a framework or something that is being used? My second question is actually regarding the item on in-home supports and staff readiness. Does the strategy have any insights or recommendations regarding the culturally specific needs that caregiver agencies should need to consider, particularly given the effort is intended to increase belonging?
Through the chair. So how we selected the Toronto Public Libraries as well as the recreational centers that we use for the consultations was based on a relatively complex matrix because accessibility was so important to us. As well as neighborhood. So we had to ensure that first and foremost, that seniors were already frequenting those locations because we know for seniors to pull them to somewhere outside of their comfort level would probably decrease participation. So we were looking already, so TPL libraries as well as rec centers where we knew seniors were frequenting, whether it was just because they were casually frequenting to meet for social events or if they're actually there for programming. We then also had to make sure that through an accessibility lens that everything would meet the needs of anyone who wanted to participate. So those were some of the criteria that we used. And then in terms of the other piece around language accessibility was then we worked very closely with our partners in TPL and Parks and Rec to ensure that we had live translation there for individuals where we know, where they knew that there were languages other than English that were spoken by the seniors who were frequenting these events. And the second one was with respect to culturally specific supports, and that I do not have an answer to at this time. We are certainly working with our teams on the actions for the first term action plan and may need to do additional consultations with our teams on that piece.
Thank you. Thank you. I do have a couple of quick ones, so let me just run my time here. You mentioned about all of the partner organizations and agencies within the city proper that were collaborated with. I'm wondering if there was a consideration for promoting within the seniors buildings and advertising the nearest libraries that folks can access. I'm just thinking in my own community in Etobicoke Lakeshore about a number. We actually have more Toronto seniors housing buildings than we have Toronto community housing buildings. And we obviously have an incredible library network, which we've just recently expanded and are continuing to invest in. There's a lot of accessibility opportunities there, whether it's digital literacy for seniors and even just accessing, the survey and having some staff support to walk through it. To me, it seems like a great opportunity not only to promote the survey within those buildings, but also to identify where the nearest library would be for individual buildings so seniors can walk on over and go to their local library to complete the survey, for example, with the necessary supports. Was that a consideration, or is that something you all can think about in the future?
Through the chair, we did quite heavily promote through all of our TSHC buildings, not only the whole thing, not only the survey, but also locations for the workshops. Teasing out, I even believe, the ones that were closest to the TCHC buildings that we were promoting in. So yes, that was done.
Wonderful, wonderful. I do think it's important anyways, I'll speak to that. That was my only quick question. Thank you so much. We are going to move to speakers. So just looking, Waleed, I've got you, Lucina. Anybody else would like to add their name to speak to this item? Karis? Got it. And Nicholas. Okay, Waleed, we'll start with you. You've got 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
I'd like to put forward a motion when you're still working. Okay.
Do we want to set you to the bottom of the list? Yeah. Okay, sorry, and we'll come back to you. Lucina, I've got you next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage in this discussion, and thank you for your presentation and answering the questions fulsomely. So I think just some of my concluding reflections is to, I guess I'm hearing a lot of intersections with a lot of other city divisions and their work, and understanding the current context in the city of the affordability crisis and sort of the displacement and eviction of folks. And I'm thinking particularly around like multi-generational housing evictions from that perspective. I'm thinking of I suppose like the conditions of housing as well in the context of climate change and the availability of air conditioning, for example, in particularly tower housing, but also older homes. And so I would just, I suppose, urge your team to really consider the intersections of the work and the strategies that are happening in the city, and ensure that the coordination of efforts is very tangible in the strategy, and the language is very concrete and specific with respect to how there will be a senior-specific lens in the implementation of that work, and then reciprocally in the strategy that you'll be developing as well. Yeah, and I think particularly I was noting a bit of a need for a focus on climate resilience and adaptation. Surely you've been thinking about that as well, but just a remark on my end as well to focus on that if possible. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lucina. We're going to go next to Nicholas. Nicholas, you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. You mentioned the Black Resilience Cluster, and I'm particularly interested to hear how the plan, whether it will support Black serving organizations, Black-led organizations, to deliver programs for Black seniors.
So we're just on speakers now. So they're going to take that back as a suggestion. And unfortunately, you can address the general committee. You can make additional suggestions or kind of phrase open-ended questions for the team to take away. But this 5 minutes is just for you to make some remarks and share any overall comments that you'd like to. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the guidance, Chair. My concern with these changes is that anytime there are significant policy changes, anytime that there are systemic changes or widespread changes in system and Black people are lumped in with all other groups and there isn't a direct focus on measures to address anti-Black racism, that Black people are always disproportionately impacted in the implementation of these policies. And we're already seeing, because if Black people are already facing all these barriers, your report speaks very clearly to these additional barriers, then it is, and we're already seeing the disproportionate impact in terms of the collection of the data and the low participation rate. We want to ensure that there's a Black focused lens on this, and that is my concern. So to ensure that there is enough Black organizations that is supporting this program, that there are alternative ways of communicating with the Black community, going to where those Black seniors are, bringing the information directly to them. These are alternative measures that I think would be needed to address this disproportionate impact that these policies would have if it's not checked. And of course, the data collection in terms of, I think that would be really critical as well in terms of assessing how the policy is impacting Black communities and what you need to tweak on it. So a Black lens in this policy is critical, and I would urge the city staff to pay particular attention to that, to ensure that it's just not a numbers game at the end of the day. And again, Black people and Black seniors are taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. We appreciate your remarks. And next online, we're going to go to Karis. You've got 5 minutes, Karis. Go ahead.
Having trouble unmuting. Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on just the previous speaker, formal senior organizations attract a certain segment of seniors, and that's the same for the Black community or any other community. And so what I would suggest, and I don't know if you've done this, is that there are additional places that you can go to access Black seniors, such as their places of worship, and to find out informal places where people go and play games or do that sort of thing, because the formal organizations that you mentioned that you've gone to, say, for example, the Rexdale Community Center, and I know that there's a a Black seniors organization just up the road from there at Kipling Heights Community Center, which you didn't mention. And so, you know, their organizations and their drop-in groups and that sort of thing. So, you know, I know that it might be difficult, but if you tap into some of the seniors or the Black seniors in the city, you may be pointed in directions that you had not considered before. Thank you.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Karis. I know staff are listening and they're taking notes about the Kipling Heights opportunity. And certainly, as always, I encourage members, if there are other direct connections, suggestions, or recommendations that we have for our colleagues as they're navigating their work, to connect them in with the exact folks we're describing. I'm sure that's welcome and will help to further shape their work and efforts. We do have one final speaker. I just want to do a final call. Any other remarks? Any other speakers? No. Seeing none, Waleed has a motion to table, and you've got 5 minutes to present your motion and speak, Waleed. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So maybe we could just show the motion on the screen. Just gonna start off by saying, colleagues, today we are discussing not just a policy document, not just another strategy, but the future of dignity, safety, and justice for our elders, the people who built this city, who held our communities together, who raised generations that now sit in this room. And yet, as the consultations make clear, nearly half of Toronto seniors, 44%, are unsure they will be able to age in place. Think about that. Nearly 1 in 2 seniors do not know if they can remain in their homes, the neighborhoods, and the communities they have spent their whole lives in. And when we look deeper, when we listen to the voices of Black seniors, low-income seniors, and seniors in Toronto community housing, as well as Toronto seniors housing buildings, we hear something even more urgent. They're not just unsure, they're already being pushed out. Many of us in this room heard directly from seniors like Zulekha, an elder who was evicted from social housing despite the vulnerabilities they lived with. Their stories are not isolated incidents, they're warnings. They tell us that our current systems are not enough. They tell us that aging in Toronto, especially while Black, racialized, or low income, is becoming a privilege rather than a right, and we cannot allow that. Toronto Senior Strategy must be more than a consultation summary. It must be a lifeline. It must be a tool for justice, and it must be grounded in measurable, accountable actions that center those who are most at risk of being left behind. This motion brings us towards that path. First, it calls for disaggregated race-based data, because you cannot fix what you do not measure. We know Black seniors face systemic barriers in housing, in healthcare, in social services, but the consultations report does not give us the data needed to act on it. Without race-based data, inequities remain invisible, and invisibility is the fertile ground where anti-Black racism thrives. Second, this motion calls for clear equity benchmarks that tell us whether Black seniors can age in place safely, whether evictions are declining, whether culturally affirming supports are actually accessible in every neighborhood, benchmarks that turn promises into action and actions into results. Third, this motion makes collaboration non-negotiable. We're calling on senior services to work directly with Toronto Community Housing, the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People, Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, and Black-led community agencies. Because all of these institutions hold pieces of the puzzle, because no single division can confront anti-Black racism alone, and because our seniors deserve systems that talk to one another, not systems that send them in circles. Fourth, the motion ensures that Black seniors are not an afterthought. It requires a dedicated section in the strategy that reflects the lived experience, priorities, and solutions voiced by Black elders across the city. It embeds the recognition, justice development framework from the UN International Decade of People of African Descent, ensuring that every recommendation is grounded in dignity, justice, and opportunity. And fifth, this motion asks for something absolutely crucial: an aging in place protection framework and senior eviction prevention and rapid response protocol. Let me be clear, no senior in Toronto should become homeless because of bureaucratic gaps. No senior should lose their home because they did not have access to legal help, or because their building lacked support, or because of systemic barriers that could have been addressed. A senior eviction is not just a housing issue. It's a dignity issue, a health issue, a racial justice issue, and a human rights issue. If we can mobilize entire systems when a child goes missing, if we can activate emergency responses for weather events, then surely we can activate coordinated support when a senior is at risk of losing their home. This is not only the right thing to do, it is what a caring, equitable, and human-centered city must do. Colleagues, our elders deserve to age with the same sense of belonging and security that they poured into this city for decades. They deserve a Toronto that honors their contributions. They deserve institutions that protect their dignity, not erode it, and they deserve strategies that do not treat them as footnotes, but as central to our collective future. The motion before you is not radical, it's responsible, it is necessary, and it's aligned with CABRAC's mandate to transform systems, confront anti-Black racism, and build a Toronto rooted in justice. Let us be bold, let us be compassionate, and let us ensure that Toronto becomes a city where every senior, regardless of race, income, or housing status, can age in place with dignity, stability, and joy. So I urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waleed. We really appreciate your work on that. I know often there's a lot of back and forth with staff to make sure that motions are procedurally accurate and able to move through the city process. It is ultimately a process. So I want to acknowledge and thank staff for their quick work, and of course, Waleed, for your leadership on this motion. So the motion is on the floor. All in favor of the motion before you, as read by Waleed? Show of hands. Thank you online. Thank you all. Any opposed? That carries. And on the item, so we're done with that one. Thank you again to Leslie and John. We really appreciate your work and your leadership on this strategy. We look forward to continuing to engage with you as it flows through the process, and ensuring that our community is counted along the way, as we know you will do for sure. So I do want to move us on to our next item on the agenda. It is CR 8.4, meeting processes and the simplified rules of procedure. We want to welcome our friend Carly Turpin, the manager of local boards, tribunals, and council advisory bodies, is going to give a presentation to the committee. This is, I think, for all of our benefit as we continue to learn and grow in our roles here, certainly for a few of our new members, as you continue to understand the best ways to contribute to our work. So, Carly, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning. I think it's still morning. It is. Thank you for having me here this morning. As the chair mentioned, I'm one of the managers in the city clerk's office, so I am here to give a brief presentation about meeting processes and the simplified rules of procedure, mainly for the benefit of our new members, but also to provide an opportunity for a refresher for our existing members. I think given we've had some fulsome presentations today, a lot of what I'm saying now will make a bit more sense than had I started at the beginning of the meeting, because you've now seen how a couple of items have moved through the committee. So just the general principles and the rules of procedure around the rights of members of the committee is the majority of members have the right to decide, but the minority of the members still maintain the right to be heard. So basically what that means is not everybody has to agree, but we provide the floor to everybody to have their 5 minutes to have the opportunity to provide their opinion, and then a vote is taken after that, but we'll get into the procedures a little bit later. All members have the right to the same information to be heard and make decisions. Members have the right to an efficient meeting. All members have the right to be treated with respect and courtesy, and all members have equal rights, privileges, and obligations. All of our meetings are open to the public. Advance notice of all meetings and all agenda items must be done. Meetings are streamed online. In our case, they are streamed on YouTube. If you are new to the committee, you can certainly go back. They are archived on the city's webpage. If you want to watch any of the previous meetings, they are there. The committee may close meetings to the public under very limited circumstances. It doesn't happen very often at a council advisory body level, but you do maintain the right to do that in very, again, limited and specific circumstances, and the clerk can provide advice on that if and when that comes up. The role of the chair, as we have seen today, is to preside over the meeting, maintain order and decorum during the meeting, make procedural rulings. That is done usually in consultation with the clerk to provide assistance on that. As you've also seen today, determine the order of questioning or speaking. So the chair has been asking who would like to speak, who would like to ask questions, so that a list can be made and we can make sure that everybody that wants the opportunity to speak or ask questions is given that opportunity. Once all members who wish to speak have spoken, then the chair will also be the one to ask for the vote on the item. The chair also has the ability to call, cancel, or reschedule meetings. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair does assume all of those responsibilities. Responsibilities of members, so everyone around this table and those joining us online, is to attend the scheduled meetings, carefully consider and make decisions about all of the items on your agenda, vote on motions that are put to a vote, speak respectfully, listen attentively, and not interrupt the proceedings of the meeting. Please refrain from using any offensive, disrespectful, or unparliamentary language when engaging with members of the committee, members of the public, and city staff. And then respect the confidentiality of any matters that might be discussed in closed session. And finally, to follow the chair's ruling and council decisions. So a meeting agenda. So that is, you would have received that from Gina a few days ago, advising you that the agenda is available for you. That is prepared by the city clerk's office. So Gina and her team do prepare that agenda for you. Agendas close 10 days before 10 business days before the meeting. And what that means is any items that are going to be considered on the agenda must be submitted in their full and final form to the city clerk on that date. If they are not, they're considered late and they are not added to this meeting. They would be pushed forward to the next meeting. All agendas are published 5 business days before the meeting and distributed to the members via a web link. So 5 business days before this meeting, you would have got an email from Gina and her team advising you the agenda is available. Once the agendas are available, they are considered a live document, meaning we in the clerk's office can make edits or changes to the agenda if there have been some errors or if there's additional information that is being supplied, it's added in real time to that agenda for you. If members of the public are sending in communications, we update that in real time as well. All agenda items on your agenda must be within the committee's mandate, and they must be, again, submitted to the city clerk before agenda closing. So staff from the city clerk's office and the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit are able to assist you if you would like to put an item on the agenda. So adding an item to agenda can be done by a number of different avenues, one of which is a member of the advisory committee. So anybody who's a member of the committee can add an item to the agenda. As you'll see, our next item was actually added by a member, so it's a great example for this meeting as well. And again, if you have any questions about how to go about that, or if you just want to talk about an idea you might have, you can certainly reach out to the clerk's office is usually your first point of contact, but also the program support staff are there to help you and guide you through it as well. Items to the agenda can also be added by city council or a council committee. Sometimes we'll get referrals from city council or standing committee that they're sending some policy piece over to the advisory body that they would like your feedback on. And then city officials are typically the most common adding to your agenda. Order of business at a meeting, as you've all seen today, the chair calls the meeting to order once quorum is present. We asked for a confirmation of minutes, and then we move through the agenda one by one. Once the meeting is complete, the chair does adjourn the meeting, and just fun fact, no motion to adjourn is required. We can just adjourn the meeting. So for each item on your agenda, the chair will identify the item by reading the full title of the item for you. If there is a staff presentation, which at advisory body levels, there typically is a presentation on every item, the staff will be asked to come to this presentation desk and give their presentation. If there's public speakers on an item, we would hear them next. And what public speakers means is any member of the public, once looking at the agenda, might decide they want to have something to say about that item, so they can register at the clerk's office, and they're given 5 minutes to address members of the committee. As members of the committee, you do have the right to ask questions of the public speaker, and again, that's a 5-minute question and answer period for you. Once we've finished the staff presentations and any public speakers, then the tables turn over to you as members to ask questions of city officials about the subject matter in front of you. Once you've finished asking the city officials questions, we will then go to members' ability to speak. And again, each one of those is a 5-minute time period unless otherwise determined by the committee. You did see earlier today, we did go to a second round of questions on the first item. On the consensus of committee, there was more questions to be asked, so we did that through the chair and everybody's consensus. Once we've exhausted all of the the members speaking and all the motions that are going to be moved have been moved, then we take a vote. So how do council advisory bodies give advice? So as we've seen, I think we've had motions on every item potentially so far. So you've seen how the advice is being given. It's done verbally through the exchange of questions and answers with city officials. And then we also sometimes, you can formalize the advice through motions, as we've done. You can make recommendations to a council committee or up to city council as well, depending on what the recommendations you're seeking. Council advisory body's role is to provide advice. If there's any recommendations that require action by city staff, they do have to go up through the appropriate standing committee and potentially onto council. All of the standing committees do have their own unique mandates, and so depending on the topic of the item, the clerk's office will decide which standing committee it does go to. How decisions are made, you've probably heard a couple of times now today, we're looking for a motion on an item. So a motion to receive the item is to receive the item for information. So no further action is being taken by yourselves here or any higher level of a legislative decision body. You're just receiving the item for information. If there are recommendations in the item before you and there's no changes to them, then the motion would be to adopt the item. What we have seen today, though, is we've amended a couple of items, and that amending was by virtue of moving motions on the item. So we've moved the motions, and you've heard the chair ask, it's a motion to amend the item. To defer the item would be to send something to either the next meeting or a specified meeting date in the future for the committee. So it could be we're running out of time and we need to take a look at our agenda items, and maybe there's one or two that aren't time sensitive and we can defer to the next meeting. The other procedural motion, you can refer an item. So if an item is brought before you, you're asking questions of staff, and then maybe it becomes evident that some information might be lacking, or maybe there is a new approach you'd like to see, you can send the item, you can refer the item back to staff with directions on what it is you're looking for, and then they will come back again at a determined date with the revised version of that item. Motions, we've seen a few of those again today, so it's been great examples to see bringing this presentation to life. Decision is made by voting on a proposal that would be contained in a motion. Clerk staff, again, are your first point of contact when drafting a motion. Wherever possible, we do like to receive those motions in advance, so we have an opportunity to review them with any impacted program area staff to make sure the motions are procedurally sound, to make sure that there's not something happening already in that area that we just aren't aware of. So we do need a little bit of time to consult. We do need all motions in writing to the CABRAC email, please. Again, that goes to the clerk's office. They are displayed on the screen. You've seen a couple of times today. We do put the motions up on the screen, and we ask each member when they're moving their motion to verbally read it out as well. Motions do not need to be seconded. They just need to be moved by the person who is moving it. In the event that there are some challenges with a motion, they might be out of order, that would be up to the chair to rule. And typically, again, that's done in consultation with the clerk. And we provide as detailed as an explanation as we can about why we can't do that. So again, We do like motions in advance as much as possible, but given the nature of the discussions that happen, we do realize that sometimes ideas come to you as part of the discussion and the back and forth, which is great. We just ask that as soon as you start thinking about it, let us know, draft it as quickly as you can, and we will help guide it through to the point where then it's displayed in the room for everybody to see. Voting, everybody present must vote. The procedures do not allow anybody to abstain from voting, so if you are here and present at the meeting, you do need to vote. Typically, most of the votes here are done by a show of hands. You do have the ability to request what's called a recorded vote, which is a bit more of a formalized vote where either the chair or the clerk will go around the room and ask each member how they vote, and then that's included in the minutes. It will show who voted yes and who voted no. A motion fails if it is a tie vote, so just something to keep in mind. If we do have a tie vote, that does mean that the motion fails. Couple of other meeting matters. You may have heard at the top of the meeting, the chair said that the clerk has confirmed we have quorum, and all that means is we have a majority of members here in order to start the meeting. So we cannot conduct a meeting without a majority of members here and present. You will sometimes hear during meetings if we're losing people throughout the day, we will do a quorum check to ensure we have enough people to continue with the meeting. If you are attending online and we are worried about quorum, you will probably be asked to make sure your cameras stay on to ensure that we can see you and you can be counted towards quorum. Quorum, we do have 30 minutes at the start of the meeting to obtain quorum, so in the event we do have anybody who might be running late, we do have 30-minute buffer to make sure we have quorum. If quorum cannot be achieved, the meeting does fail, and we can't proceed with the meeting, and all of your agenda items would then be pushed to the next scheduled meeting date. Attendance, you'll usually see an email from the clerk's office confirming quorum, asking if you can confirm your attendance. It is important that you do maintain regular attendance at these meetings. Any members that are absent for 3 meetings in a row without having been excused by the chair do automatically get removed from the committee. So just something to keep in mind. We do pass motions to excuse absences, but we can only do that if we know about your absence in advance. So please ensure that if you are unable to attend meetings, that you either let the clerk's office know, the chair's office, or the program staff. We do all communicate, so just to make sure we know who to expect. There are a number of reasons why people might be absent, and we can pass motions to excuse absences. Just 2 other administrative things, if you haven't seen already, all our minutes are available online. All of the past meeting minutes, decisions, and videos as well are available online. If you need any help navigating or trying to find where all this information is, please reach out to the clerk's office and we can guide you through how to find it all. As new members, you may want to look back and just see what's been discussed at the previous few meetings to get an idea of what typically comes forward at these meetings. And I think that's it for me. I'm happy to take any questions, though, or if there's anything you'd like to discuss offline about meeting processes, the clerk's office, we're always happy to help. We can set up a time to chat as well.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Carly. It's always amazing. No matter how much we do this, there's always a little bit more to learn and be reminded of. So thank you. We do have a speaker on this item. They are joining us online, so you can stay seated there, Carly. But Miguel, I have you registered to speak to us on this item. You've got 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. I would like to share. May I have privileges, please?
Yep, clerks are giving the thumbs up. You should be able to go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, fantastic. I will be speaking with regards slide number 3.
Sorry, we're on item number 4, meeting processes and the simplified rules of order, of procedure, sorry.
Yes, that is correct. I'm speaking on that item, Councilor Morley.
Perfect. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So slide 3 says that all meetings are open to the public, except for a few circumstances. And this is related to privacy of the individual, city employee, local board employee, litigation, potential litigation. And today we are also checking, looking at the attachment number 7, with regards to simplified rules of procedure for advisory bodies. Perhaps the presenter can help me to understand. Is this the official document that all local advisory bodies must follow? Last November 6th, there was a meeting of the Aboriginal Affairs Advisory Committee, and they were supposed to discuss the terms of reference of the committee, and for one reason, the meeting was not open to the public because they said that in certain circumstances, they can use Section 10 of the Simplified Rules of Procedure. So Section 10 is interesting that in Attachment 7 is nothing discussed or discuss this point that they can have an exemption to have a closed door meetings. Do you know what happened, my friends? This meeting did not happen at City Hall, but it was hosted outside City Hall here in Regent Park with Toronto Aboriginal Support Services Council of Toronto at 660 Dundas Street East. Wally knows that building. Everybody knows that building in Regent Park. However, I was not invited. I'm a Regent Park resident. I should have been given the courtesy, Miguel. We are going to have a meeting outside our City Hall. You're welcome to attend. But that didn't happen because of Section 10 of the Simplified Rules of Procedure. Will the presenter enlighten me and help me to understand if this is the correct information that I've been provided by the committee administrator of the city clerk's office? That will help me to understand, and CABAR to also to think about when they're gonna be facilitating closed door meetings, and if this Section 10 will be part of that rule to have private door meetings. I'm really confused. It says it's open to the public, but at the end it seems to be, it doesn't apply when the meetings are hosted outside City Hall. And in Regent Park, imagine that. Just 2 blocks away from my home. Thank you.
Thanks, Miguel. I appreciate you taking the time to address us. As you know, the advisory for the Indigenous Affairs is just outside of the purview of this particular committee, but on the general question of whether this the referenced appendix applies across all advisory, I'm happy to put that question to staff on your behalf when we get there. So thanks again for taking the time. We're going to take it into committee for questions of staff on this item. Are there any questions for Carly or clerks? I have Lucina, May, Waleed. Any other questions? Sorry, I'm just waiting for the screen to come back online. Lucina, Waleed, and just sorry folks online, just give me a second here. Waiting for the video to pop up. Any questions online? Queen, perfect, I got you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll start there. Thank you so much. Lucina, you're up first. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Carly, for the refresher on the procedures. Just wondering if you could also just provide another refresher on what exactly happens to a motion once it's been adopted. I think there have been certain times, at least on mine, when I'm not quite sure how it will thereafter move into the appropriate council committee, and whether I suppose like any further action would be required from CABRAC to then bring it back, or whether that needs to be a proactive request that the committee has to undertake again. So if you could maybe speak to that, and then specifically around like the different mandates of the council committees and whether public members are actually able to have any sort of involvement at council committees, or whether those are kind of closed and just streamed online. So your insight would be appreciated.
Certainly. So there's a couple different avenues at a council advisory body for motions to travel. So when the motions are framed as advice to staff, they do stay at the CABRAC level, so they are given to whichever staff. Typically, it's all funneled through the CABRAC unit, and then they work with their partners and divisions to operationalize the motions that are passed here. A formal report back request isn't always required. Typically, there's consensus in the room from the city divisions or through the program support staff to come back and provide an update on whatever is being asked of them. As far as when they travel up to the standing committees, so once we pass a motion here, and we will make it very clear when a motion is passed here if it does require standing committee approval, it goes up to the standing committee, but then it is there and the committee can make any decision they want with it. So similar as to how we have the ability at the advisory body level to amend a decision, adopt it, refer it, defer it, all of those same options apply once it gets to the standing committee level. I think you've seen a couple of motions from this committee that have gone up through economic, the ECDC committee with different outcomes. Some have been amended, some have been adopted as sent up, and I think there may have been one or two that actually were referred back to staff. So there is a way to monitor and follow items that we can show you via email that just if you want to email Gina, we can show you how to track the item through the system. As far as public participation, members of the public can absolutely participate on standing committees. So similar to how we have people that can register to speak here, you as a member of the public can register to speak on an item that's at standing committee. You're certainly welcome to identify yourself as a member of the committee when you are there speaking. You can only speak obviously on your individual behalf, but you can certainly identify that you are a member of CABRAC. You can also submit written comments. So if we are sending anything from this council advisory body up to a standing committee level, you can certainly, in addition to sending the official item from the advisory body, you can also submit your own written communications to add to the item as it travels up through the legislative framework. Once it gets to City Council, though, there's no longer the ability to speak at Council. You can continue to submit written comments, but City Council doesn't hear from members of the public. That's done at the standing committee level. With respect to what standing committee it goes to, it really depends on the subject matter. I think predominantly things that come out of CABRAC typically tend to travel to ECDC, but again, it depends what you're asking for. You do have the ability to transmit items to any of the standing committees. So again, that's done in consultation with clerks. We are the ones who determine what standing committee items land on, but we can certainly do that with you ahead of time. If you're thinking of something and you'd like to know the path it's going to travel, reach out to Gina anytime, and Kemba as well, and we can help you map out where it's going to travel.
Just a quick point of clarification for those who don't speak city. ECDC is our Economic and Community Development Committee. Sorry, Lucina, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Just a follow-up clarification or question. So once it gets to the appropriate standing council, there's really no mechanism for CABRAC members to, I suppose, influence. I guess what I'm getting at is I have seen it occur where perhaps what came out of CABRAC is then subsequently amended in language and intent at the standing council. And so I guess my question is, like, what are the measures in place to kind of ensure that that alignment with the original intent of the motion is maintained? Like, what are those points of influence, or aside from, I guess, speaking at the meeting, but not really knowing how that's taken into account?
Yeah, so the mechanisms to maintain influence would be through speaking at the meeting as well as sending in your written communications. But once we do transmit a council advisory body item up to a standing committee agenda, you do lose control of it, so to speak. So now the standing committee's agenda, who it's on, owns that item wholly. So they have it in front of them, and they do have the ability procedurally to modify, amend, and all the same rights you had at the council advisory body level, now they have at the standing committee level.
Thanks, Lucina. Great questions. Next, I have May. You've got 5 minutes, May. Go ahead.
Actually, Lucina asked the question. I was just wondering about the pathways of a motion. Thank you.
Yeah, I love a asked and answered. It is great. Thank you. Next on my list is Waleed. Go ahead, Waleed.
Christina asked my question as well. Thank you.
Beautiful. Look at us.
But I still waiting for bit of a response on the pathways. I am trying to, in my mind, appreciate like what committee is responsible for what, like what motions go to the executive committee, which ones go to EDC, EDC. Well, I meant EDC. Yep. that acronym. Which committees are responsible for what when it comes to motions that are considered a CABRAC? Thank you, Carly.
Again, it's really subject specific, so you'd have to go and review the different mandates for the standing committees. But again, we can help you frame them. If there's a certain direction where you want it to land, we can help frame it so that it does fall within that subject matter. But there isn't really a cut and dry answer other than it's really item specific and subject specific. But we are happy to provide the initial advice, and then if it needs to be tailored because you would like it travel somewhere differently, that's where we can work with Kemba and with Mo, and we can help as much as we can guide you through the system.
Thank you so much.
Great. Queen online, I have you next for a question. I'm not seeing your video, so we'll just, there you are. Beautiful. Go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
So I actually also have the same question as well. Thank you for clarifying that. So I have an additional question. So if a motion we want to pass, like the topic is not on the agenda, can you still put the motion forward, or does it need to be a topic as a part of the agenda?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is a great question, and actually something I did mean to clarify during my presentation, so thank you. There is a distinction between a motion does have to be on an item currently on the agenda. So when we say motion, we do mean passing something on an agenda. If you would like a new item on the agenda, that's where you can add new business. And as a member, you have the right to add items to the agenda. So if there is something you would like to see that is not related to an item on the agenda, please reach out to the program staff or to the clerk's office, and we can help you draft an agenda item that would then include the motion or the action that you're looking for. So just to be clear in the terminology we use, motion refers to a request for something already on the agenda. If you are looking for something that is not on the agenda, you can submit a new business item, and the clerk's office can help you with that.
Great. And we have an example of that as our next item, so that's actually perfect. Wanted to do one last check for additional questions of staff on this item. Seeing none, we can move to speakers. Anybody want to speak to this item? Seeing none, we can move to receive this for information. I can have a motion to move receipt. Great, Nicholas, first motion on the committee. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you so much, colleagues. And thank you, Carly, of course, for your ongoing support and that great opportunity for information. So we are going to move to our next and final item on the agenda, which is item 8.5, the 2026 budget allocation for social development plan implementation. This item is a letter from May, and I hope folks have had an opportunity to review. We can open up for questions of staff on this item. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll move to speakers. And maybe we can look to you to start us off with speakers and just provide some information about what we're looking at here. Go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I put forward a motion that recommends the City Council request the Mayor to consider in the development of the 2026 budget allocating ongoing yearly funding in the range of $250,000 to $500,000 annually per neighborhood to support neighborhood associations or community-led coalitions to implement social development plans. I'm bringing this motion forward because our city is facing a critical moment. Across Toronto, many neighborhoods, particularly those with large Black, Indigenous, newcomer, and low-income populations, are experiencing rising safety concerns, deepening housing instability, and widening economic pressures. These are not abstract issues. They affect daily life, and they disproportionately impact Black communities. Social development plans, or SDPs, offer a concrete and evidence-based path forward. We have already seen what is possible in Regent Park. The Regent Park SDP, supported by a $500,000 annual city investment between 2019 and 2024, helped the neighborhood achieve 0 gun-related deaths in 2023. I'm going to say that again because I think it's so important. The funding for the Regent Park SDP helped the neighborhood achieve 0 gun-related deaths in 2023. It also strengthened youth employment pathways, supported mental health and housing navigation. It built strong partnerships between residents, service providers, and city divisions. And these achievements did not happen by accident. They were the result of intentional, coordinated, community-led work. The success of Regent Park is the clearest evidence that social development plans work, and they also save lives. We also know there is a broad community support for expanding this model. The Federation of South Toronto Residents Association, known as FOSTRA, which represents 29 neighborhood associations, has called on City Council to adopt SDPs citywide. Their recent white paper outlines a thoughtful phased rollout, realistic funding requirements, governance models, and evaluation measures. It provides city councils with a very strong roadmap for action. Importantly, SDPs are not only about safety, they are about equity and anti-Black racism reduction. They address the systems and conditions that shape everyday realities, access to services, opportunities for youth, pathways to good jobs, community cohesions, and neighborhood-level inclusion. SDPs give neighborhoods the tools to build resilience from the ground up. This motion fits squarely within CABRAC's mandate. It advances the principles of the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent, recognition, justice, and development. It asks the city to invest in neighborhoods that have historically been underserved and structurally disadvantaged. It asks the CABRA unit and SDFA to work together to create equity-focused indicators so that we can measure progress in real terms. What we're proposing today is simply this. A model that has proven successful in Regent Park should be extended to all priority neighborhoods across Toronto, a model that reduces violence, increases opportunities, and strengthens communities, a model that centers equity and amplifies resident leadership. I respectfully ask for the committee's support on this motion so that we can send a strong and unified message to City Council. Toronto needs social development plans in every priority neighborhood, and the time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Amazing work, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to discuss this and bring this forward through our committee. As we heard about from Carly earlier, this was originally conceived of as a motion, but because it wasn't necessarily tied to any existing item on the agenda, it has formed into a new business item. So this is a letter from May for the committee to adopt, right? To receive or to adopt. So what we're going to do is just reorder things just slightly because I messed up. We will consider that your speaking moment an introduction of the item. Now that we've heard a little bit more from May directly about this piece of work, we will call again for questions of staff just to see if there are any on the floor that have percolated as you've listened through that introduction. I actually have one or two questions, so I will put myself on the list. Anybody else for questions of staff on this particular item? Will lead. Seeing, and we do have also a speaker. So we will open up the floor for Miguel. I forgot to ask Miguel's question. Miguel, you can address the committee on CR 8.5, budget allocation for social development plan. We heard some shout out for your community, so go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chair and members of the committee for allowing me to speak on this final item of the agenda to support, of course, my community of Regent Park to have the base foundation for other communities across our city of Toronto. And as the letter states, we are facing a huge crisis, greatly influenced by Bill 60 passing yesterday, Bill 33, etc., etc. We need to invest in good jobs for our youth. Regent Park is a success story in 2023. We did not have anyone to mourn or, miss from our community to gun violence. I want to thank Waleed for his efforts behind the scenes always. The social development plan is a great tool to address the roots of violence, which is poverty and the lack of housing, affordable housing. So yes, please allocate funding for the next coming years so that our communities are able to function with proper staffing. Not everything is perfect in Region Park. I want to be clear and honest and transparent. We went through some kind of hiccup with the Social Development Financial Administration. We were reset. And as a result of that reset, we have lost funding for our administration support services. We were without administration support services for the social development plan. That is shameful. There should be a continuity of funding so that we can continue working in this community. So that's the number one improvement that you guys need to do, is secure steady funding in order that this social development plan across the city of Toronto works for everybody. Number two, I want to give you bad news. Our Region Park TV doesn't have any funding on this year's social development plan. It's quite sad. The Region Park TV is the jewel of Region Park. It's embedded in our DNA as Region Park residents. Sadly, it's sad to see people getting laid off and not being able to enjoy this Christmas because funding was not allocated, or there has been some kind of error. And we hope the mayor that is watching this presentation will take note that mistakes do happen, but honestly, if we are going to take the example of Region Park, we got to make sure that we do it the right way, the right thing, always. And that way, other communities that are emerging, like Lawrence Heights, are able to benefit from community benefits like we have. We are so close to sign our community benefits agreement with Tridel and TCAC this December the 6th. And we will move forward with implementing these job opportunities. So also we need funding for our SDP, for our implementation of the monitoring of the community benefits agreement. And the other part is we are lacking funding for 627 units to be built in phases 4 and 5. I believe that amount is only 125 units are RGI'd. The rest are in limbo. They don't have provincial or federal funding. So please, take the good example of Region Park, but make it right with proper funding, enabling our community to get off poverty. And then we will lead our other communities to enjoy the same benefits that we have in Region Park. We are an envy, but we work very hard. We work very hard during the pandemic on Zoom and making sure that this community thrives and always is at the front when it comes to gun violence. We don't want to see that again and across the city of Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Perfect timing. We appreciate, as always, your voice and participation. We are going to move to bring it into committee, move to questions of staff. I have one or two questions. Waleed, I know you have one or two questions as well. Any other members of the committee wishing to question staff on this item? Seeing none. Waleed, why don't you, Lucina? Yep, maybe Lucina. We'll see how our first few questions go. And if anyone else, please just get my attention. I'll add you to the list. Waleed, go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Am I passing on to the next person? It's in 1 minute. Okay.
Lucina, you're up. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you, May, for your very thoughtful motion. Just curious around the phrasing for neighborhood associations or community-led coalitions. So envisioning these groups as sort of the leaders of the social development plans, do you have Perhaps a perspective on who might be best positioned within these neighborhoods to take the lead on these, or is that it will be just like community determined, more so like emergent grassroots, whoever has the capacity to undertake the SDP?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucina, for that question. And I think it's important to kind of understand how this type of funding would trickle down and work within a neighborhood. I would say that SDPs, the point of them are to be community coordinated and community led. There already is a lot of groundwork happening within neighborhoods and communities that are led by these neighborhood associations that already have these kind of more so formal structures. So I would say that because that already kind of exists, it would make sense to work with neighborhood coalitions and have them lead these projects, but it also is a community-driven effort. So communities would then decide, I guess, how things go forward. I know just with this motion, I'm more so pushing for it to be included in the upcoming budget, and hopefully, fingers crossed, once it has, then we can kind of along the way figure out what it exactly would look like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna ask my questions, unless Waleed, you ready? You're ready? Okay, you go ahead. Take your 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. I was just reminded that the federal government invested in 2023 on an anti-racism action program focused on the social development plan. So that was like, whoa, completely forgot about that. So I'm going to include that in my remarks. So I just want to, first of all, acknowledge that we're at a defining moment, and I want to thank May for putting forward this motion. I think we need to be focused on evidence.
Sorry, Waleed, to interject. I apologize. Don't want to interrupt. Speaking or asking questions?
Okay, so yeah, the question.
Yeah, sorry, 4 minutes of question.
It's going to be less than a minute. The question is, has the CABRAC unit done an analysis on the impact of social development plans, not just in Regent Park, but like in Alexandra Park, Lawrence Heights? I mentioned that program that was funded. It's known as ARAP. I think the Regent Park Community Health Center was a trustee for those funds in Regent Park. But are there other reports or analysis that exist that could help us prepare for an upcoming meeting in January? I know Mohammed Sharia is going to surprise us, but I'm just wondering if that work has been done. Thank you.
So through the chair, our community resource section, which supports investments in our communities, has done analysis on various different sorts of engagements, including social development plans, community development plans, and we would be happy to present a broader review on sort of the engagement of these plans and what are currently actively in various different communities if the committee wishes.
All good? Yep, thank you. I just had a high-level question related to the city's work around priority neighborhoods, neighborhood improvement areas. There has been an evolution to how we define, select, and identify communities of priority for our city and equity-deserving communities. Can you talk to us about how that work has evolved in the last decade or so, and where we currently find ourselves in terms of a prioritization and targeted focus?
Yes, so through the chair, beginning that work early on through City Council was primarily focused on what was described as priority neighborhoods, and the indicators were mostly around violence and reduction of violence, and we've over time broadened that to consider broader social determinants of health and overall well-being. So the improved neighborhood improvement areas included that, and we were able to peg that to the urban heart indicators, which were a United Nations indicator set. Those indicator sets have sort of ceased to be most relevant. So staff have been updating the broader neighborhood assessment tools, and we are hoping to bring forward to our City Council's consideration in 2025 a new tool that we're developing with United Way called the Toronto Neighborhoods Assessment Framework is sort of the working title now, and happy again as part of the commitment earlier to include some content on that as part of a report to CABRAC.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And I'm sure this committee will watch closely as that work evolves and hopefully be able to put our fingerprints on it as well. But my second question is just around the current level of dedicated resources to what we understand now as neighborhood improvement areas. How many neighborhood improvement areas are there in the city of Toronto? Sorry, skill testing question on the fly here. Additionally, can you highlight some of the targeted investments and how we're currently approaching and resourcing those neighborhoods?
So through the chair, the city has identified 31 neighborhoods as part of the neighborhood improvement areas, and our investments coordinated through the Toronto Strong Neighborhoods strategy that we've had in place since 2020. I don't have at my fingertips the total investments made in these neighborhoods, but I can ensure that I bring that information back to the committee.
Great. And then my last quick question, I'm going to slide in my last 30 seconds because I never take my full 5, is just wanting to get the sense from staff on this item. And I'll encourage us to update our language, it's item versus a motion, right? Because it's coming through as its own thing. On this item, is this something that staff feel will complement the ongoing work on better supporting our equity deserving communities citywide?
Certainly through the chair, investing in communities and particularly providing resident engagement is always helpful and is something that is a key priority for social development in the city. So as written in the motion in terms of that investment and prioritization of neighborhoods, it would be very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Those are my questions. Did we get lead on questions already? We might have speakers. Okay, we're going to go to speakers.
Okay, I'll ask.
If that's okay, and I'll get you up first for your 5 minutes, and you can go ahead
I
and.
had one question I completely forgot. I'm sorry to raise it again, but it relates to social development goals and whether we have considered as a city, how do I best put this? Indicators or benchmarks that align with social development goals so that we as a world-class city can also demonstrate through our own data, through our own work, through social development plans, the work that's been done to, advance social development goals. So that was my question, and then I'll get to my...
So through the chair, we can take that back as a consideration, but some of the work that we can share with the committee that we're considering is expanding the indicators to be beyond just limited indicators that look at social demographic income and populations, but looking at things such as housing, health outcomes, physical infrastructure in neighborhoods, civic participation and community well-being, and then considering impacts of climate change on different neighborhoods. So these are some of the diverse range of indicators that we're considering as we redevelop a more robust neighborhood framework, and the input of this committee would certainly be most helpful.
I'll just add really quickly, as I do sit as a member of the Toronto Police Services Board as well, one of the shifts under the city's direction of SafeTO and our umbrella strategy for community safety, there has been a shift in thinking from looking at indicators within community as crime indicators to community safety and well-being indicators. And I think that's very indicative of the depth of understanding that our city has and the vision of having a collaborative system across all of our agencies, boards, and corporations that are breathing life into our strategies, including confronting anti-Black racism and having a deeper understanding of the work required for us to get to the outcomes that we're driving. And so that's evidenced, I think, within many other examples, including Toronto Police Services, but I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention because I do think it's relevant to your question. And thank you for indulging me. Lucina's going to jump in with one more question. We're going for a second round, guys. Go ahead, Lucina, and then we'll go to speakers. Go ahead.
Apologies, Chair. Thank you for providing the space. So I do believe that SDPs, the value of them are uncontested, but I also am called to reflect on the procedures of like transfer payments and giving grants or funding to communities and the conditions that may be associated with that release. I'm not familiar with how that currently operates within the city, and I'm thinking through whether there would be any sort of conditions or reporting burdens on the part of neighborhood coalitions and community organizations to demonstrate fiscal responsibility, for example, in how they're using the funds, measuring the outcomes of the social development plans. So if you could speak to maybe how that currently operates and whether hypothetically there would be measures to prevent burden on the part of organizations in seeking to do this work.
Through the chair, that's a great question. So we have a variety of ways and tools that we engage with community partners. Certainly in the development of any funding agreement, we do engage with the partner to ensure that we have a collective understanding of our objectives, the timelines, the deliverables. Once that is secured with the partner, we are able to transfer that into what we can sometimes call a Schedule A of the city to help ensure that the funds are enumerated through a legal agreement with the partner. The city also engages trustees for community groups who are not necessarily registered not-for-profits to steward the dollars, to provide opportunities for community residents to be able to work together to advocate and continue to do the work without having to deal with the administrative burden of stewarding those dollars. So we do seek to both in the creation of opportunities to work with the residents and groups to identify what are our collective objectives and ensure that's included in the agreements, but also to consider ways for those funds to be supported, if necessary, through a trustee or if the organization is a not-for-profit.
Wonderful. Again, great work, May. You've stimulated a lot of, I think, good discussion, good questions, and some good thoughts from committee members. I am going to call for speakers on this item. Waleed, I've got you. May, do you want 5 on this? Or yeah, awesome. We'll give you the last word. Any other speakers on this item? I don't have anyone on video online, so I'm sorry I can't see. And sorry, we are going to do a quick quorum call out. This is our last item. Thanks, Kendall. I see you there. If others, Queen, Karis, thank you so much. Dr. William, any others, we welcome you to turn your videos on. We're good now. Thank you. And anybody wishing to speak on this item online? All good. Okay, seeing none. We'll do Waleed. I will say a few words and we'll give the final word over to May on this. Waleed, go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, today we stand at a defining moment, one where evidence, community leadership, and government commitment are aligning in a way rarely seen in municipal policy. The motion before us to implement social development plans across all priority neighborhoods by 2027 is not just timely, it's necessary, urgent, and deeply grounded in community wisdom and racial equality research. So SDPs are proven to work. They're evidence-based, and we know they're working. I can speak to my experience in Regent Park, where the outcomes are well documented and undeniable. We had 0 gun-related deaths in 2023. We've had increased youth leadership and employment pathways, stronger community cohesion and trust building, coordinated supports that strengthen safety, stability, and belonging, and resident-led structures that drive equity, accountability, and transparency. And these results were not accidental. They were the product of intentional investment, resident leadership, and city support. And critically, these results were also validated through independent, anti-racism-focused research funded by the Government of Canada's Anti-Racism Action Program in 2023. This federal investment supported the REACT Consultants report, A Pathway Forward, centering the needs of the SDP network, which was published in May 2023. The federal governments recognized that SDPs are a frontline anti-racism infrastructure. ARAP explicitly funded the exploration of equity challenges, working group dynamics, racial trauma, cohesion, and the structural supports needed for successful SDP implementation. The federal government invested because the SDP's model is working and because it is aligned with Canada's commitment to anti-racism and community-led safety strategies. The question now whether is, can we continue this important work in the years to come? Toronto neighborhoods are calling for SDPs. On October 8th, 2025, 29 neighborhood associations coordinated by FOSTRA, issued a citywide call for social development plans to be implemented across all priority neighborhoods. This is unprecedented. Neighborhood leaders from Parkdale to Scarborough, from Weston to downtown East are unified in their message. Communities need the same coordinated, resident-driven infrastructure that, for example, transformed Regent Park. They're calling for safety, for youth opportunity, for tenant advocacy, for neighborhood inclusion, for equitable development, for structures that reduce anti-Black racism at the local level, at the community level. This is a moment of alignment across civil society that we cannot ignore. The need is growing, especially in Black and racialized areas. Neighborhoods with high Black and racialized populations face compounding pressures: persistent youth unemployment, severe housing unaffordability, the impact of inflation, global instability, and the US trade issues or trade tariffs, gaps in mental health, resources, food security, and community supports. SDPs provide a coordinated response that we know works. They build safety without over-policing. They increase youth belonging and employment. They build community cohesion. They strengthen housing stability, and they reduce the conditions that allow anti-Black racism to persist. This is exactly what CABRAC was created to advance. SDPs are critical anti-Black racism interventions. For example, a Pathway Forward report funded by the Federal Anti-Racism Action Program identified the importance of cohesion and trauma-informed approaches. They need to for clear accountability structures, challenges with oppression, racial trauma, and discrimination working groups. The need for anti-racism training, conflict resolution systems, and better governance, and the need for equitable resourcing of resident-led structures. All of this findings strengthen the case for expanding SDPs. This is anti-Black racism reduction in action, not symbolic gestures, but structural changes. I want to conclude by saying Toronto can lead globally. Foster's white paper reminds us that SDPs align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially those on inequality and sustainable cities, global best practices in community-led urban development, and partnership with institutions like the World Urban Pavilion in Regent Park, which positions Toronto as a global leader in neighborhood transformation. By scaling SDPs now, Toronto can become a model city for equity-driven, community-led development, not only across Canada, but internationally. Thank you.
Perfect timing, almost like you practiced. Good job. 5 minutes. Thanks, Waleed. And I really appreciate those comments. I want to echo them in my remarks as well. I mentioned earlier in my line of questions to staff that, the city's thinking about priority neighborhoods, neighborhood improvement areas really has evolved over the years. And as someone who was an organizer and an advocate in community, trying to get attention, trying to get resources, and trying to ensure that, sorry, let me reset my time. Trying to ensure that there was a coordinated and consistent effort to drive the kind of change that we need to see and deserve to see in community. Because the fact of the matter is, in the communities that we're talking about, there is great amounts of adversity that folks are required to overcome. There are intersecting identities, there are intersecting challenges, including poverty, barriers related to racism and otherwise, that are just a matter of fact. And for those of us who come from and have grown through and been raised in these communities, we know it as a matter of fact through our lived experiences. What I'm so excited about as a member of council and as a leader in the city now is that we get to drive change from a place of understanding and experience and representation to where the things that are needed in community should no longer be a matter of politics. They're a matter of fact, and we get to see excellent senior leaders in the city of Toronto working with data and evidence and voices of those of us who are living through and have lived through various levels of adversity in our own lives, and no doubt have built incredible resilience as a result. We have incredible insights as a result. But the truth is, this city continues to be the tale of 2 or 3 cities. Folks who haven't gone through those experiences or walked that path don't always fully understand. They don't have a line of sight. Right? We continue to have debates like hockey rinks or accessible programming for local community who have been underserved historically, right? To me, these shouldn't really be, it shouldn't be a debate, but we're having them, right? And opinions on all sides of these issues matter, but being at the table and ensuring that the challenges and obstacles that continue to be true for communities like ours are being understood, are being resourced, and that we're moving forward in a better way, because ultimately that's what builds an equitable and inclusive city where we know diversity is our strength. So how do we lean in and uphold our voices? And it's through items and leadership like May has brought to our committee and table today, where we can now take forward as a member of the budget committee, as in different capacities, to continue to steward this voice and the importance of investing in our communities, because our potential is limitless. And the more we are seen, heard, respected, and brought to the table and along the journey, the more we can then contribute and ensure not only our communities are thriving, but our wider community and our incredible city, which is a leader globally in so many ways, including in work like this. We can continue to pave the way and be a beacon of hope for all the people who are paying attention, for ourselves and for the next generation of leaders that we're raising up and creating good soil for them to grow in. So I'm really, really proud of this work of the committee and certainly of this motion by May. I just keep getting flashbacks to being, I wasn't necessarily in an NIA, we were adjacent, but we had a lot of issues and for different reasons, right? So we'll continue to look forward to working with staff as they do their thinking on what do priority neighborhoods look like, neighborhood improvement areas in 2025 and beyond in the city of Toronto. How do we make sure that we're not creating gaps for communities that might be in a pocket of poverty amongst wealth, that those communities and those service providers are not getting lost in the shuffle, and that our equity-deserving communities continue to be counted and resourced. So very excited about this great work. Again, thank you, May. We'll be proudly supporting this item, and we will give the last word over to you on this one. You've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. I really feel the passion in the room right now, and it really warms my heart, especially after even hearing Miguel, and he's a resident of Regent Park, and he spoke to how it was in their embedded in their DNA now, and thinking about the fact that there was 0 gun-related deaths in 2023. I'm someone who grew up in social housing. I'm a Jane baby, born and raised. I'm part of the Somali community. I've had friends who I've lost to gun violence. I have had cousins. I've known many families who can say at least one person has passed away or one person is incarcerated. So thinking about how something like an SDP could change the lives of so many young people, and not only young people, but thinking about the mental health of parents and newcomers and people who are navigating these systems because of what barriers and poverty puts them through. It's really heartbreaking, and it's not something that is easy to navigate or even even understand when you're also in that position. I would also like to echo something else that Miguel said. Oftentimes, a lot of projects and programs are funded at once in one burst, and then it's radio silence after that. And it's so disheartening to see when communities build from the ground up, this important work and improve the lives of people and save their own lives and do all this stuff for their own communities, and the funding is pulled and they're kind of just left in the dark and now have to navigate doing everything all over again with the old ways. And so I really want to urge everyone to kind of support this motion. This is our moment to act, and I respectfully ask for your support in this so we can build a safer, stronger, and more equitable communities across Toronto. Thank you.
Fantastic, good work, and well said. Thank you so much again for your leadership. The motion is on the table. Do you want to do a recorded vote so we can practice, since we did our procedures and it's our last item? We'll get it, hopefully a unanimous vote here. So I will call for a recorded vote on this. I do think it's strong and it sends a powerful message to our colleagues and budget committee and those who will receive this item. So all in favor of the motion, or the item before us? Do you want me to call the names individually? May, Waleed, myself, Lucina, Nicholas, sorry, I'm going fast. Makiba, sorry. Online we have Salma, Karis, Queen, and Kendall. And off video. Sorry, Dr. William, are you with us? Just wanted to see if we want to get you counted for that recorded vote. We can't count you if your video is off, so I'll do a quick final call. All good. She's probably on a meeting, double duty. All good. Thank you, committee members. That was a unanimous vote, and that will move through the process, and we'll continue to track and monitor that through our clerks and our colleagues at KBER. What a great meeting. Okay, we got there. So I do want to... Sorry, William. Awesome, William. Thank you. Do you want to be counted? Can we count?
Yep.
All right, we gotcha. Thank you so very much. So I'm going to just provide a quick bit of remark. So the items, all in favor, unanimous, all good. So the item is received and adopted. Thank you. I do want to just quickly provide an update to the committee, a verbal update to the committee. I didn't do this formally through the clerk, sorry. Just to say that Vice Chair Lucina and I did get an opportunity to meet with City Manager, senior leaders from Toronto Shelter Services, Refugee Settlement Office, Emergency Management, and a number of other colleagues yesterday late in the day to have a check-in discussion related to the work on shelter and support services response to the Ombudsman report, the investigation into the city's decision to stop allowing refugee claimants into base shelter system beds. Colleagues and committee members will recall a couple of years ago when there was a really, heart-wrenching situation unfolding on the streets of Toronto, and many members of the Black community and specifically the faith community stepping in to provide some emergency intervention. We did have a productive conversation yesterday, and we have invited our colleagues from Shelter Services to join our table in March. So they will be on the March agenda with, and some additional reports are going to be flowing through standing committees in December and the following month, but they will be joining us in March. So we will have an opportunity to check in with them to get some updates on the work that they have done since, based on recommendations from council members and others. So I did want to just update committee members to look forward to that coming in March, and thank you for your patience. I know it's taken some time for that to come back to our table, and I think it'll be a fruitful discussion when we get there. So thank you for that indulgence. Do we have a motion to excuse absences for... Yeah, so I'm going to just move a motion to excuse the absences of members who are not able to be present here today. Halimo, Kathy, and Rosemary are the three that we've heard from. So can I, all in favor of the motion to excuse absences from those? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you so much. So again, members, that's our last meeting of the year. That concludes our business for today. We're excited to see you all in January. Our next meeting is January 12th, 2026. And thank you all to the staff who've been supporting this great work, of course, to our clerks, and to all of you for your time, expertise, and energy here today. We'll see you in January. Have a happy holiday, happy Kwanzaa, any celebrations that you're doing, rest, reflect, and we'll see you all for 2026. It's going to be a busy one. Thanks, everybody.